Chapter 472. The girl's eyes were focused on the last teacup. In the land of life fire, Miss Zhao was one thing, but Courier and Zhang Yinluo were both deeply connected to the land of life fire. They both knew what the sudden appearance of the blazing angel meant. Last night in Huqing, the blazing angel of unknown model that had descended from the sky had caused Courier, who had always been calm and collected, to lose his composure. The shock and astonishment that Mao Mei received was equal to that of Yinluo. Zhang Yinluo's tone was also full of disbelief. Worry and suspicion flashed in her eyes. She glanced at Courier and asked, "A blazing angel that we've never seen before. Which faction does it belong to?" Courier said coldly, "How would I know? You know the significance of the blazing angel to the theocracy country without me telling you. Every blazing angel is the symbol of the power of the land of life fire and the pride of the Order of Flames. You know what it means to have one suddenly appear. The schemes and exchanges involved are unimaginable. It's almost like the seven luminaries' sword of the Hudu Empire has suddenly appeared out of nowhere." Sun Lang's expression changed. He and Zhao Feihuang looked at each other. Their expressions changed at the same time, and they said at the same time, "Tensei Province." Zhang Yinluo frowned and said, "Tensei Province again. It definitely has something to do with Tensei Province." Sun Lang said decisively, "At the very least, it works for Tensei Province. The fact that it saved the Wang family and tricked Qi Guanyin is proof of that. Besides, the pilot of this blazing angel probably knows martial arts. It controls the blazing angel armor with the combat awareness of the warriors of a land of life fire, so that the blazing angel armor can be used more efficiently and efficiently." Zhang Yinluo was shocked. Then she said in shock, "That's impossible. How can an Eastern warrior be qualified to pilot a blazing angel? Even I don't have one." Courier said indifferently, "You feel very regretful, very pitiful, and very unwilling." Zhang Yinluo blushed and retorted loudly, "No way. I don't care about blazing angels. If you don't want to give it to me, so be it." Oomph. It seemed that she must have been so indignant that she even bit her blanket and cried in her dreams. Sun Lang gave Yinluo a thumbs up and laughed heartily. "Come, make me a facial cleanser, and I'll help you snatch that blazing angel. Even a double peak piercing ear is fine." Zhang Yinluo's expression changed at first. Then he roared, "Don't even think about it." Sun Lang smiled. "You're so stubborn. When the time comes, I'll strip that blazing angel armor and show it off in front of you every 2 or 3 days. I'll force you to sign countless unequal treaties that humiliate your country." Thinking of this, he decided to turn it into a seller's market first before bullying this girl. Thus, he stopped pestering her and continued, "There are some things that can be done by coaxing Qi Guanyin, but the current situation isn't so good. Our potential enemies, besides Tensei Province, are also the Life Fire Nation. That's right, not to mention the blazing angel that appeared out of nowhere, now that both Death Messenger and Lone Ranger were on Sun Lang's side. If nothing unexpected happened, at least one of the blazing angels would be surnamed Sun forever." Considering the significance of the blazing angel armor in the Life Fire Nation, this kind of action was almost equivalent to someone robbing one of Putin's strategic nuclear submarines of the god of the North Wind out of thin air, and it was the kind that was full of nuclear warheads. Even if Courier's Death Messenger theoretically belonged to the Episcopal Church, and robbing it was equivalent to weakening the enemy forces. Moreover, they could use this opportunity to launch an attack, and there were many benefits. However, the Divine Emperor probably wouldn't tolerate the blazing angel falling into the hands of others. After all, he was still able to distinguish between internal and external conflicts. Moreover, there was also the matter of that mysterious blazing angel. Just which side did it belong to? Courier's brows were tightly knitted. Tapping his slender fingers on the table, he muttered, "In theory, Tensei Province and the Episcopal Church have an alliance, and this blazing angel should be a secret weapon that the Episcopal Church and the Tensei Province colluded to privately produce. However, from Qi Guanyin's performance, It seems that the Tensei province has already made preparations to destroy the alliance, and that blazing angel is still working for the Tensei province. That's a bit strange. She was somewhat confused by the situation. The interior of the Lihua kingdom wasn't a monolithic block. The ambitious divine emperor was trying to reform, and the powerful episcopal church was strong and conservative. The forces of the two sides were tangled and complicated, and there were also various neutral people and fence-sitters in between. Such a chaotic situation gave Courier a bit of a headache. There were too many things worth associating from this blazing angel. However, Sun Lang didn't have such concerns. He didn't quite understand how chaotic the Lihua kingdom circle was. Therefore, as a bystander, and as one of the top military experts in the world, he saw through the essence of the matter at a glance. He waved his hand and said, "Don't worry, this matter doesn't need to be so troublesome," Courier said with interest. "Then what should we do?" Sun Lang pointed at Sister Mao and said, "First of all, you used to be a henchman of the Episcopal Church and the Divine Emperor's political enemy. Now that you've joined me, your primary enemy has changed from the Divine Emperor to the Episcopal Church, which prevents his revenge, right?" Sister Mao didn't feel the slightest shame of being a traitor and nodded happily. Sun Lang then pointed at Zhang Yinluo and said, "I don't know much about Yinluo's situation in the Lihua kingdom, but it seems that she's also a loyalist, right? And her relationship with the Episcopal Church isn't very good either." As soon as he finished speaking, Zhang Yinluo said indignantly, "It's not that it's not very good, it's 10. Divided. No. Good. A bunch of pedantic and annoying old men. Just because I'm a citizen of the Empire, they don't like me." Calm down, calm down. It's common knowledge that the Northerners don't like the Empire. Let's not talk about the Swedes who killed Shenluo in the 30 Years' War. But look, most of the Nords don't like the Empire either. Sun Lang said comforting words that no one could understand. And then he came to a conclusion. Look, Yinluo had a lot of face with the theocratic nobles in the Lihua kingdom, but her reputation with the conservative faction isn't that high. In other words, with her relationship, we're naturally closer to the Divine Emperor. Courier seemed to understand, and his expression changed slightly. "You mean," Sun Lang laughed, "besides, there's also Long Wanda's relationship. That kid is upright and naive, and he's easy to manipulate, so he'll definitely be liked by the Divine Emperor." He came to a conclusion. With all these reasons, it's easier for us to become friends with the Divine Emperor. The Episcopal Church is conservative and has a natural rejection of outsiders, and they're also an ally of the Tensei province, so we'll have to work with the Divine Emperor to beat up the Tensei province and the Episcopal Church together. Courier's eyes lit up, as if the clouds had cleared, but he was still worried. But as I said, the Tensei province seems to be ready to fall out with the Episcopal Church. If that blazing angel isn't a cooperation between the Episcopal Church and the Tensei province, but you're saying that the Tensei province might secretly form an alliance with the Divine Emperor to hedge against the risks? Sun Lang laughed carelessly. Well, it's not very likely because the interests of the two sides are obviously in conflict. Even if they're forced to form an alliance, there are too many places that can be destroyed. Even if there's such a thing, I can easily ruin it for him. He pondered for a moment, and a mocking smile appeared on his face. Politics, perhaps yesterday's enemy, will become today's friend. The so-called doctrine is nothing more than a business deal to see who offers the highest price and is more agreeable to one's heart. What the Divine Emperor wants, and what he's afraid of, I know better than that woman, and I know better than anyone else in the world. He patted the table and announced the result of the discussion. In short, the Raging Flames Divine Power Nation is nothing to worry about for the time being. There'll always be a chance to make friends with the Divine Emperor. Sun Lang threw one of the teacups on the table aside, looked at the other teacup and 2 peanuts, and narrowed his eyes. Tensei province is far away from the capital, so it's nothing to worry about. That woman knows that if we attack, we'll die no matter how many people come. So she'll definitely play tricks. He reached out and pressed the 2 peanuts and said in a playful tone, "This is her chess piece to win a big one with a small one. Maybe there's another one waiting in ambush. I've thought about it, and the best way to solve the current deadlock is to kill Qi Guanyin and push the blame to me. It'll be even better if I can kill a blazing angel while I'm at it." Sun Lang's expression was calm, and he said indifferently, "If all these things are done, then I'll immediately become the culprit who killed the Jinzhou general and caused the conflict in Lihua. All my military and political achievements in the past will be lost, and I'll become the sinner who started the war. In terms of morality, I won't be able to stand on my side, and I'll be in an extremely passive situation." Zhao Fei Huang said thoughtfully, "But now, General Qi has joined us, and both blazing angels are with us. With Sun Lang's protection and the cooperation of so many experts, even if Tensei Province wants to succeed, it'll be very difficult." Sun Lang smiled proudly, and then he proudly raised his eyebrows at Courier. "That's because the quick-witted and resourceful Empress Tensei always makes a mistake. She didn't expect that I would have such a tyrannical aura after disappearing for 2 years. She even easily made Courier, who should have never been able to be instigated, under her command. That's why there's such a huge flaw in the plan." Humph, humph, humph. Zhang Yinluo pouted unhappily. "Rogue." Courier smiled at Sun Lang, and then said, "Don't let your guard down. That Empress Tensei is a very difficult person to deal with. Although she made a mistake in her calculations, she definitely has a very powerful backup plan." Sun Lang nodded thoughtfully. Then he frowned and said, "That's what I don't understand as well. I don't know where else she could have tampered with the plan. Her plan seems ingenious, but there are some parts that can't stand up to scrutiny. It doesn't seem like an oversight, but a deliberate one." He thought about it again and again, but he still couldn't make heads or tails of it. He shook his head and said, "Let's deal with it as it comes. So, let's leave it at that for now. The key point now isn't the teacup, but the 2 peanuts. As long as we help Qi Guanyin find his wife, then fish out that blazing angel and beat it down, the initiative will be ours." The young girls naturally didn't have any objections. After the harem meeting was over, it was time to meet with Old Hu and the others. They discussed for a while and only decided to let Sun Lang and Courier go. Inluo and young lady Zhao wouldn't participate. Inluo didn't want to participate, most likely because he was afraid of trouble and thought that his brain couldn't keep up. But young lady Zhao didn't want to go, so her intentions were deeper. After all, this was Marquis Jing'an's Fu, and young lady Zhao was the master here. Moreover, after experiencing so many things, the Marquis Jing'an's Fu that had been liberated from the evil clutches of Tensei Province was undoubtedly a member of the United Front. Not showing up in this kind of important meeting where they were discussing how to deal with Tensei Province was basically telling Sun Lang that the Fu had already decided. "You should preside over the meeting as the master." It could only be said that this kind of sneaky method of taking advantage of others was too slippery, so much so that Inluo was completely unaware. Sun Lang and Courier discussed some internal matters of the Lihua Kingdom. Under Su Qingwan's lead, they arrived at the meeting hall where Hu Shouxin and the others were at. The 4 men over there had already taken their seats. They were respectively Hu Shouxin, a retired local soldier who was mysteriously dealt with by Tensei Province, and Qi Guanyin, the current commander of Mingzhou's military district, who realized that he would be dealt with by Tensei Province, but never expected that he would be dealt with like this. And Long Wanda, the Lihua guard who was dealt with by both his own country and Tensei Province. Finally, Lu Shuyan, the Mingzhou's governor who was played by everyone but relied on his intelligence to deduce that he would soon be dealt with, so he took the initiative to defect. And there was also an intricate and complicated relationship between them. For example, Hu Shouxin used to think that Qi Guanyin, with a licentious B*TCH, Long Wanda was once dealt with by Qi Guanyin, and Lu Shuyan was played by both Qi Guanyin and Hu Shouxin. All of them had a very bad impression of Qi Guanyin, and now all the men present felt that Qi Guanyin didn't have it easy. F*CK bro, 10,000 arrows pierced through F*CK. And the addition of Sun Lang and Courier immediately added fresh mud and rocks to this chaotic small circle of 4 people. At least Courier, Qi Guanyin, and Long Wanda had a friendship that was akin to the Three Kingdoms War. As for Sun Lang, it was needless to say, he was simply the source of all evil. After Long Wanda and Lu Shoyin made space for the two of them, Sun Lang and Mao Mei sat down casually. The former marshal looked around and felt very proud. In terms of scale, the people present were naturally not as talented and righteous as the people under his command in the past. But there was always a beginning. He said meaningfully, "You should remember this day. Remember this house. It might become the most terrifying building in the history of mankind. It is like the most powerful ship in the history of mankind. It is not a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier or a strategic nuclear submarine, but a small cruise ship in the South Lake of Jiaxing." These words are somewhat incomprehensible, but still impressive. But except for Lu Shoyin, who had just joined, the others didn't buy Sun Lang's words. Lu Shoshin rolled his eyes and said, "Don't talk nonsense. Now, what are you going to do?" Chapter 473. Among everyone present, Qi Guanyin was the only one who didn't know Sun Lang's true identity. And Sun Lang didn't intend to let him know for the time being. After all, this Mingzhou general's position was still a little vague and ambiguous. Sun Lang faintly sensed that the other party had been hiding something from him. Since that was the case, then it was better to keep it a secret from each other. Therefore, there was no need to announce the rules that he had just discussed with Ms. Zhao and the others. He looked around at everyone and said directly, "General Qi said that if we help him vent his anger and resolve the situation, he will come up the mountain and join us for righteousness. Kill the treacherous officials and clean up the emperor's side." Logically speaking, everyone was very sympathetic towards Qi Guanyin's recent emotional problems. Think about it, a young, high-ranking, talented, and promising commander of a military region who went against the trend of the officialdom. He didn't go whoring, didn't take concubines, and didn't keep concubines. He was so devoted to his wife that it almost made people suspect that he was gay. He followed his wife's orders blindly and entrusted all of his financial power to her. He was a humble servant at home and served his wife well, and then his wife ran away with someone else. This was the saddest thing in the empire this year. The general's predicament was enough to make any man present feel sympathy for him, not to mention the fact that they all knew each other, and not to mention the fact that they all had the basis of cooperation. Even if they met a man who had nothing to do with them, they would still seek justice for him out of their common sense of righteous indignation. Okay? Therefore, Hu Shouxin, who was also a good man, was the most enthusiastic about this matter. He almost slapped his chest and promised that he would help Qi Guanyin get justice. Although Lu Shoyin and General Qi had some disagreements, his righteous indignation as a man made him want to help. Secondly, Lord Lu was very happy to hear that General Qi had encountered such a tragedy. After all, he wasn't usually nagged by his wife at home. General Qi had always been a model husband in the circle of noble women in Mingzhou. Why was he happy? The logic was simple. Think about it. When you were still in school, there was a good student who was constantly nagged by teachers and parents as other people's children. He was so good that even his poop was very standard. Suddenly, one day, he was caught on the spot because he climbed over the wall to go online at night. The next day, the furious head teacher directly hung him on the wall at the class meeting. Then, sitting below, would you feel good in your heart when you heard this sound of nature? Would it feel good? F***CK, this feels so good. You F***king deserve this. With such a mood, Lu Zhou, who had taken concubines, visited brothels, and slept with maids, was inwardly pleased when he saw great General Qi fall into such a state. Mother Fastersker, who asked you to pretend? You're the only one who cares about your wife, making it seem like all of us are heartless. Lu Zhou had no qualms about helping Qi Guanyin due to his sense of superiority and Sun Lang's attitude. Long Wanda's opinion could be ignored. After all, this kid was easy to coax. Therefore, for a time, no one had any objections. Suddenly, Qi Guanyin rose to his feet. He cupped his fists at everyone and said solemnly, "I'm very grateful that all of you are willing to let bygones be bygones and lend me a helping hand. Hu Shouxin and Lu Shouyin were both fastidious people. They rose to their feet and returned the greeting. Long Wanda snorted and said, "When this matter is over, I'll settle another score with you." Qi Guanyin cupped his fists at Long Wanda and said, "I'll certainly give you an explanation." Sun Lang was still sitting casually. He looked at Qi Guanyin, whose face was filled with sincerity and gratitude, and a playful smile appeared on his face. Interesting. Just a moment ago, he finally found out what he felt was wrong about Qi Guanyin. However, he still did not know what Qi Guanyin's plan was. At this moment, he did not have any concrete evidence. If he exposed this matter, it would not be nice. It would only make things worse. Hence, Sun Lang smiled and said, "There's no need to be so polite. We'll be brothers in the future. There's no need for formalities. Let's get down to business." He looked at everyone and said, "General Qi's enemies are closer and closer. The closest ones are his ex-wife, Madame Wang, and her blazing angel. The furthest ones are Tensei Province. However, at the end of the day, it's still Tensei Province." Sun Lang's expression was indifferent. He knocked on the table and said, "A few days ago, Tensei Province secretly plotted to kill General Hu. We've already foiled their plan. Although the Black Armored Army was annihilated, the northern faction isn't a pushover. Since Tensei Province is so ruthless, we can't let this matter rest. Now that the northern faction and Tensei Province are like fire and water, we need to throw away our delusions and prepare for war." His words were said casually, but everyone's expression turned cold when they heard it. They couldn't help but sit up straight, while Qi Guanyin looked at Sun Lang with a bewildered expression. No one knew what he was thinking. Sun Lang had been keeping his eyes and ears open all the time, taking in all the strange movements around him. When he saw the blank look on Qi Guanyin's face, his heart moved. Damn it, I couldn't help but treat this place as a commander's tent. Why am I so familiar with this? Without batting an eyelid, he softened his tone and continued. Right now, the situation in the imperial court is in a stalemate. Every party is constrained, and a slight move can affect the whole situation. The Heavenly Policy Mansion has scruples and doesn't dare to go all out. Before the imperial court comes to a conclusion and the imperial edict is sent to the imperial capital, this window is our chance to gain a foothold. Basically, everyone knows that General Qi used to be a henchman of Tensei Province. Yesterday, General Qi and I were tracking the Blazing Angel and eavesdropping on their plan. Tensei Province obviously wants to kill General Qi. Seeing that everyone nodded in silence, Sun Lang continued. As for why they want to kill General Qi, the reason should be very simple. Tensei Province's plan to assassinate General Hu has not only failed miserably, but it has also been exposed, causing the Tensei Province to be in an awkward situation. General Qi has always been unwilling to cooperate with Tensei Province's orders, and Empress is already tired of his indecisiveness. Now we can kill two birds with one stone. We can push General Qi's death onto us, stir up chaos in Mingzhou, attract the attention of the imperial court, and dilute the impact of the assassination of Hu Shouxin. No one had any objections to this analysis. Sun Lang said slowly, "Since we know the goal of our enemy, what we need to do is very clear, and that is to stop their scheme, maintain the stability of Mingzhou's political situation, and force Tensei Province to take a big step back in terms of strategic situation. Due to the situation in the imperial court, Tensei Province doesn't have many chess pieces to play. Our enemy is very clear." Hu Shouxin said thoughtfully, "That would be the Blazing Angel that suddenly appeared, and the Wang Consortium. Now that they have disappeared without a trace, they must be plotting something. But no matter what they are planning, as long as we capture their people, no matter how brilliant their plan is, it will be meaningless." Sun Lang nodded and said, "I think so too, but the enemy is in the dark while we are in the light. The Blazing Angel can fly, and the Wang Consortium is a small target. If they want to hide, it will be very difficult to find them." Everyone present was not stupid. Their eyes all fell on Qi Guanyin. Sun Lang said gently, "Perhaps asking this is no different from rubbing salt on your wound again. But General Qi, please put aside the pain of your wife running away with another man for the time being and think carefully about what your ex-wife will do. You were just rubbing salt on my wound as if nothing had happened. Qi Guanyin smiled bitterly. Didn't I discuss this with Brother Sun yesterday? I have been official for more than 10 years, and my wife has all the records of all the important officials in the imperial court, as well as all the shady affairs. If she wants to use a small amount to win a big deal and use her own strength to move me, the great general of Mingzhou, I'm afraid she will have to use this record. Before Sun Lang could say anything, Lu Shoyan had already stood up and said involuntarily, "Record?" Then Qi Guanyin looked at him apologetically, then turned his head away. I'm ashamed. At this moment, the righteous indignation of being a man and the secret pleasure of being an indecent man no longer mattered. Lu Shoyan stomped his feet and cried out, How many of our colleagues in Mingzhou are going to die because of you?" Sun Lang glanced at him from the corner of his eyes and said, "Do you have a deal with assholes as well?" Lu Shoyan blushed slightly and said shyly, "As the prefecture governor of Mingzhou, my table manners aren't that bad. However, the Wang family once spent a lot of money to buy a few of my paintings. This was a classic bribe method that had been popular in recent years. This was especially true when it came to works of art whose value was extremely vague. Since ancient times, it had been the perfect vehicle for money laundering and bribery. For example, how long would it take for Prefecture Governor Lu Zhou to write a few lousy words? However, someone admired Lord Lu's talent and was willing to spend tens of thousands of gold coins to buy a piece of calligraphy. This was a legitimate transaction between both parties. How could it be considered bribery? Indeed, it was difficult to define the nature of such behavior in the empire. However, if the person who spent tens of thousands of gold coins to buy the calligraphy kept a record of how much he spent to bribe Lu Shoyan in exchange for some benefits, and the account book fell into the hands of someone with ulterior motives, he was basically done for. Sun Lang snorted disdainfully. "I don't even know what to say about you. Why are you using such a low-level bribe method? Lord Lu, if you want to take bribes, why go through all this trouble? Come, Lord Lu. Let's say you have a mansion in a perfect location with a well-decorated courtyard. You can sell it to one of your relatives for 30,000 taels of silver. Then, General Qi, you can also find a relative to buy the house from Lord Lu's relative. First, you have to pay a deposit of 5,000 taels of silver and sign a house purchase contract. If you break the contract, you have to pay 5 times the deposit. After that, you can choose to break the contract and give up the house. You have to pay 25,000 taels of silver to Lord Lu's relative." He spread his hands and said, "In this way, the house will still be in your hands, Lord Lu. With the 25,000 taels of silver from General Qi, even if this matter is exposed in the future, you can still deny it. After all, you have never been involved in this matter. It was your relative who handled it. Even if the censorate wants to bite you, you can still get away with it. Isn't it perfect?" Lu Shoyan was stunned when he heard this. I can do that." It was as if he had pushed open the door to a new world, and all kinds of strange and wonderful ideas came one after another. Just as he was thinking, he raised his eyes and noticed Sun Lang's smiling eyes that were full of care and gentleness. For a moment, he felt as if a bucket of ice water had poured over his head, waking him up in an instant. Yes, since I have decided to rely on a marshal, why do I still do those things? Originally, I thought that my career had reached its peak, so I took some money to wait for my retirement. Now that the marshal has returned, the court will definitely be in turmoil. As the vanguard, I will do my best. It is not impossible for me to return to the central government and become the prime minister. Compared to the power in the court and the power in the court, those trivial things are nothing." Thus, Lord Lu lowered his eyes and said, "This old man understands." However, he still came back to his senses. The problem now was not the level of the bribe, but the fact that this thing kept records and was in the hands of that wastrel Qi Guanyin. For a moment, Lord Lu's eyes were filled with murderous intent. It seemed that he had to get involved in this matter, whether it was public or private. Hu Shouxin abhorred this kind of unhealthy practice in the officialdom, but now was not the time to criticize this matter. He thought for a while and said, "The Wong family wants to use the account books to deal with General Qi. It's a good way to deal with him with little effort. However, this account book is like an arrow. Although the arrowhead is sharp, if you want to hurt someone, you still need a strong bow to shoot it out." Lu Zhou's expression changed. "Don't tell me she has already found the book and is heading to the imperial capital to give it to the Empress?" Sun Lang said indifferently, "Don't worry, it's not likely. Tensei Province wants results, not tools. If the Wong family foolishly returns to the imperial capital to present the treasure, they'll definitely kill her." Hu Shouxin thought for a moment and said, "However, without the power of Tensei Province, it won't be easy for a little girl like her to turn the book into something powerful enough to threaten the great general." Sun Lang nodded and said, "That's right. Moreover, at the end of the day, the so-called account book is only our guess. Nobody knows if the Wong family will use this method." Lu Shouyin looked at Qi Guanyin and asked, "Where is the account book hidden?" Qi Guanyin smiled bitterly. "It's hidden in the accounting room in the house. It's hidden in the most dangerous and safest place. However, since things have come to this, I don't think that woman would take the risk of returning to the mansion to look for it. With her scheming mind, she must have left a copy of the book somewhere else." Sun Lang looked at Qi Guanyin meaningfully. Lu Shouyin did not doubt Qi Guanyin's words. When he thought about it, he was at his wit's end. The enemy was in the dark while he was out in the open. Looking for a woman in Ming Province's vast land was like looking for a needle in a haystack. At this moment, Long Wanda, who had been silent all this while, suddenly said, "Why don't we think of something else?" Sun Lang glanced at him and said with a smile, "What brilliant ideas do you have?" Long Wanda snorted, "I don't have any brilliant ideas. I've never accepted a bribe from the great general's mansion, and I don't know the Wong family. Qi Guanyin's matter has nothing to do with me. I'm a Leaf Fire Guard. What I'm interested in is that unknown blazing angel. In my opinion, that's the more serious matter. So, why don't we start with the blazing angel?" Chapter 474. Hearing that, everyone was stunned. That made sense. Although Long Wanda was a Leaf Fire Guard, his political sense was basically zero. The conflict between Hutu Tensei Province and the general of Ming Province was almost irreconcilable. If any member of the foreign reactionary forces heard about it, they would roll into the cesspool crazily like dung beetles. But he was not interested at all. Therefore, he would not be too concerned about the affairs between Qi Guanyin and Tensei Province. Moreover, he was determined to dedicate his life to the magnificent cause of the divine power of flames. Also, when he was in the prime of his youth, he was brainwashed by a certain general of Hutu who said that, "How can I have a family before the sky demon is destroyed? Even if I destroy the sky demon, I will not have a family." Therefore, he was not interested in marriage at all. Therefore, he certainly did not have much real feelings about Qi Guanyin's emotional problems. He was only willing to help because of his kindness, not because of his feelings as a man. Feelings? Qi Guanyin. So gay. In short, compared to Qi Guanyin's family affairs, Long Wanda, as a Leaf Fire Guard, had something more worthy of attention, which was a seraph that had suddenly appeared and was not recorded. Considering the sacredness and importance of a seraph in the Order of Flames, an unregistered black car already meant a very serious political incident. It was a great provocation to the law of the Order and the dignity of the Divine Emperor. It was something that the Leaf Fire Guard soldiers who were loyal to the Divine Emperor could not tolerate. The golden-haired young man said righteously, "This seraph is blaspheming the glory of the Order. As a Leaf Fire Inferno Guard, I will not let this matter rest." As he spoke, his eyes fell on Courier, seeking the support of his fellow clansmen and former companions. "Death Messenger, are you going to stand by and do nothing?" Courier said casually, "Of course not. This seraph is undoubtedly an enemy. It must be dealt with. Of course, it's still debatable who the armor will belong to after I get rid of it." She added inwardly. Long Wanda did not know what this woman was thinking. He revealed a satisfied smile and nodded. Then, he said to the others, "That's right. The Wang family's combat strength is probably not high. She needs to rely on the power of the seraphim to protect her or escape with her. In that case, if this blazing angel is struck down, then this woman will have no choice but to surrender. Sun Lang and Qi Guanyin looked at each other. Although they both felt that the Wang clan would definitely not surrender, even without the seraph, this was not necessarily a bad idea. Long Wanda added, "Moreover, compared to the Wang clan, the blazing angel is a bigger target and easier to discover. This is also one of its disadvantages." After all, don't forget, he revealed a confident smile and proudly raised his chin. He said proudly, "I am the pilot of the Lone Walker, the Scout of God. My armor is proficient in tracking and searching. Perhaps large-scale frontal battles are not my forte, but if you want to find a hidden, blazing angel armor in the Ming province, I'm afraid you can only rely on me." Everyone present fell into silence. Sun Lang blinked and suddenly turned to ask Courier, "Really?" The death messenger cruelly stripped the dignity of his defeated opponent and said proudly, "It's fake. You were clearly chased away by me like a dog before, and you still dare to boast that your tracking skills are unparalleled in the world." Before long, Wanda could flare up. Sun Lang turned to ask Qi Guanyin, "Qi Guanyin, when you chased after him with your underlings, did you come up with any experience on how to track the blazing angel?" Qi Guanyin replied somewhat awkwardly, a little, "Hey." Long Wanda flew into a rage. "Do you want to fight? Are you looking for trouble? All right, stop fooling around." Hu Shouxin frowned. "I think Long Wanda's idea is feasible. Starting from that blazing angel is also a method. And according to Sun Lang, that blazing angel pilot seems to know martial arts. This matter is probably not small. If we can capture him, it will be a good card." Sun Lang suddenly thought of something, and his eyes lit up. "There's one more thing." Everyone looked at Sun Lang, but he suddenly frowned. "What's that idiot's name again?" "Oh, right, King's Seal." "King's Seal." Qi Guanyin rolled his eyes and said somewhat unhappily, "Why are you mentioning that bastard?" Although the recent forgiving incident had nothing to do with his brother-in-law's misdeeds, Qi Guanyin was still extremely unhappy when that little bastard was mentioned. If he had to find a reason, it was probably because he wanted to find a punching bag to vent his anger. After all, his attitude toward the Wang family was too ambiguous, and it seemed that he could not hate them. And he could not beat Sun Lang. Sun Lang did not have any objections to that small yaman. After all, that retard who seemed to have been spoiled by the Wang family had provided fertile spiritual soil for his extremely barren transmigration life. It allowed him to show off, relieve his mental pressure, and delay the destruction of the world. It could be said that Sun Lang had made a great contribution. In order to prevent a certain demon king with superpower and super cheap mouth from destroying the world, partners from all over the world were forced to gather together to act out a vulgar and melodramatic drama, so that this demon king's desire to show off and slap faces would be satisfied, and he would not have the thought of destroying the world. This setting was quite interesting. The melancholy of Outyen of the Cold Palace. He tossed aside the messy thoughts in his head and said with a smile, "Your brother-in-law was also taken away by the blazing angel. That guy is so retarded and idiotic. He can't be a spy from the Heavenly Policy Palace. Why did the blazing angel have to bring him along?" Qi Guanyin thought of the scene last night. Even when surrounded by two experts, even in such a dangerous situation, that blazing angel did not forget to take away the burden that was Wang Yin. He suddenly thought of something, and his expression changed slightly. Then he lowered his eyes. Sun Lang glanced at him and smiled. "No matter what the reason is, the good news is that this is beneficial for our search, especially the Wang family and Wang Yin. These two people's appearances will definitely be very conspicuous. The Wang family was very beautiful, and she was the wife of the great general. She was in charge of the internal and external affairs of the great general's residence all year round, and almost decided the life and death of thousands of people in the residence with a single word. She naturally had a noble temperament, and no matter how she disguised herself, such a temperament could not be concealed perfectly. It was the same for Wang Yin. If that's the case, then let's start assigning tasks. Although the enemy is in the dark and we are in the light, and it's difficult to find them, we have an unparalleled advantage in this battle. Everyone must have confidence. Sun Lang looked around. First of all, we have the absolute advantage in strength. Once the enemy is discovered by us, they can only wait to be captured. With that, he glanced at Qi Guanyin, as if secretly mocking him for going easy on them last night. Qi Guanyin was silent. Second of all, Sun Lang revealed a bright smile. We are now members of the Zhao family, a group of corrupt officials who can use public resources for private purposes. The highest leader of Mingzhou's civil and military officials is among us. God damn it, when there are no restrictions on the power in our hands, of course we'll use it. He suddenly became excited and slapped the table. Look, Mingzhou's military commander, Mingzhou's provincial governor, and secretary of the provincial party committee. With this old man. Bah, with the northern faction backing you up, the Central Commission for Discipline Inspection won't even dare to fart. Qi Guanyin was already somewhat used to Sun Lang's slanderous words, but Lu Xiaoyan was not. Moreover, Sir Lu was once a member of the Central Commission for Discipline Inspection, so he was immediately embarrassed. Lu Xiaoyan lowered his gaze and said, I understand what you mean, young master. You want me to issue an order to the various departments in the counties to remove the wanted posters, search for suspicious people, set up checkpoints at various checkpoints, and investigate the whereabouts of the Wang family and their brother. This is easy to hear, but I want General Qi to issue an order as well. We'll put pressure on the civil and military officials at the same time, set a time limit, and announce the rewards. That way, we won't have to worry that our subordinates won't work hard. Sun Lang nodded and said, Of course. You'll be in charge of this, Lord Lu. You can also work together with General Qi. In the future, Mingzhou will depend on the two of you. When Lu Zhou heard this, he was slightly delighted. He was worried that his power would be taken away by the Grand Marshal. Now that he had a promise, although it was not a wish to be made an official, with Lu Zhou's status, there was no need for him to kick up a fuss. Moreover, Hu Shouxin had heard it as well. Lu Zhou sighed in relief when he saw that his position was not threatened. Then, he nodded with a smile. Sun Lang looked to the left, and right before he said, If there's nothing else, you may leave. Then, he rose to his feet and turned to leave. Wait. Hu Shouxin's eyes widened. He reached out and stopped Lu Zhou. What do you mean by that? Sun Lang was puzzled. He asked, What's the matter? Do you want me to convey the core spirit of the meeting? Do you want me to confirm the course of action? Do you want me to provide you with some guidance and reassurance? Do you want me to arm you with some theories and doctrines? Hu Shouxin was confused. Of course, that's not it. But isn't the meeting only halfway? Why are you running away? There are many other things. Sun Lang was even more confused. What else is there? The three of you are in charge of using the dirty power of the adult world to search for the other party. Once you discover them, report to us immediately. Then, we'll charge over and kill them all. That's the end of this matter. What else is there? Hu Shouxin was speechless for a moment. Then he asked, What about you? Me? Sun Lang laughed and blinked. He pointed at Long Wanda and Courier. You guys are in charge of dealing with the Wang Consortium and the Wang Seal. We're in charge of dealing with that Iron Man. This is called specialization. Do you want to make a bet and see which side makes progress first? Hu Shouxin glanced at Sun Lang a few times. His expression changed slightly. Then he nodded and said, If that's the case, that's fine too. Then, leave the matter of coordinating the civil and military official systems' large-scale investigation to us. You guys can focus on tracking down that Seraph. Anyway, you don't want to touch those tedious things. Wait, Qi Guanyin suddenly said. Are we splitting up? Sun Lang smiled as if nothing had happened. Yes, what's wrong? It's better to split up. Qi Guanyin shook his head. The enemy is in the dark while we're in the light. If we rashly split up, it'll be easy to be defeated one by one. Sun Lang smiled. Then, he'll have to have the strength to defeat us one by one. Needless to say, with a great expert like you holding down the fort here, we'll be as stable as an ante. Qi Guanyin repeated doubtfully, Ante. Sun Lang covered his face and sighed. It's my fault for making this joke. Don't say it anymore. It's a bit painful for your eyes. So, you have to coordinate with Lord Liu to get the civil and military officials of Mingzhou to work together. You can temporarily stay as a guest at Marquis Jing'an's residence. Qi Guanyan's expression changed. This, Sun Lang said earnestly. What do you mean this? This is for your own good, so that you won't have any lingering feelings for her and be confused by your wife's 2 drops of tears. You'll fall into her evil scheme and die before you realize your ambitions. Qi Guanyin shook his head. That won't happen. I'll let you go once to end our relationship as husband and wife. The next time we meet, we'll be enemies. I won't show you any mercy. Kitahara Haruki seems to have said the same thing. Sun Lang patted Qi Guanyin's shoulder and said gently, Do you think I'll believe you? Don't glare at me. Let's not talk about the fact that we have a business deal with you and want to pull you up the mountain to join us. Just as a man, I can't let you die. He revealed a sympathetic expression and patted Qi Guanyin's shoulder hard. Brother, to think that an honest person like you endured for more than 10 years in exchange for this kind of result. Can you bear it? You can't bear it. Revenge is one thing, but there's another thing, and that is to feel good. Enjoy life. Make up for all the losses you've suffered all these years. Think about it. If you don't F***K 100 big sisters, will you be satisfied? If you don't F***K at home more than 20 times, will you be able to feel at ease? If you die before you do these things, will you be satisfied? Qi Guanyin said with a complicated tone, I feel that the two of us think of things from very different angles. Sun Lang's pure and sensitive heart immediately had a great reaction. He said angrily, Are you F***King showing off that you're not a virgin? So what if you F***K before? Don't look down on me. Qi Guanyin was stunned. I didn't mean that. You're still denying it. I'm most annoyed by you bunch of people who are full of themselves, spouting nonsense all day long, saying things like that kind of thing is actually not as comfortable as you think. The feeling of kissing is actually just like that, and breasts are actually tasteless. Just like that, you crush our dreams with an arrogant look. You're the worst people in the world. Scum. Sun Lang turned around and left while cursing. Long Wanda and Courier followed. The entire meeting room was filled with Sun Lang's long-winded ramblings. He pushed open the door and turned around, pointing at Qi Guanyin with a look that said, I'll remember you, kid, be careful. Then he swaggered out of the door. Qi Guanyin wanted to say something a few times, but he was interrupted by Sun Lang. After Sun Lang slammed the door and left, Hushoshin glanced at Qi Guanyin and said with a smile, Don't mind him, he's just like that. Occasionally, he'll say some nonsense. Qi Guanyin forced a smile. It's nothing, he lowered his head, and a complicated light flashed in his eyes. Chapter 475. Long Wanda and Courier followed behind Sun Lang and left the meeting hall. The three of them turned through an arched door on the side and headed deeper into the Marquis estate. On the way, Courier suddenly asked, You don't trust Qi Guanyin? Sun Lang smiled. I've always had my suspicions, but I just discovered some clues and understood something, so I became even more suspicious. Courier frowned. What? You just discovered some clues? Then why didn't I discover it? Sun Lang smiled. You're observant enough, but you're not a man, so you don't understand a man's mentality. Think about it. Qi Guanyin is a man with a successful career and an extremely high social status. He's a soldier with illustrious military achievements who licks blood from the edge of his blade. How strong must his self-esteem be? Yet his wife betrayed him. How humiliating is this? Even an ordinary man in the marketplace wouldn't be able to endure this kind of humiliation. They can only use blood to wash away the bone-deep trembling. He turned to look at Courier and said calmly, If it were you, after encountering such a situation, even with the threat of Tensei province, would you calmly make the long journey to Mingzhou with a man you don't trust, don't know, and have an extremely mysterious background, and then sit with a few acquaintances whose social status isn't inferior to yours? Would you seek their help under the comforting gazes of kindness and sympathy? Courier's eyes suddenly moved. So that's how it is. Usually, they won't, because for a man, this is already a humiliation that seeps into his bones. Before using blood to wash away this humiliation, he will be too ashamed to speak of this matter, let alone seek help from other men. After all, he has power, he also has power. Men who have these will have a strong sense of self-esteem that is even stronger than ordinary people. Sun Lang sighed. Do you understand now? He's too calm. This can only mean one thing, and that is, in his heart, his wife ran away with someone else is not very important, or not the most important thing. He has more important things to do, and this is the source of his calmness and humiliation. He raised his head and said faintly, "After all, the most painful thing in this world is not everyone laughing at you or hating you, but everyone pitying you." After saying this, Sun Lang immediately raised a finger and said solemnly, "Just in case, I want to make it clear that this is Bao Qiang's line, not my life experience. Moreover, the things I said to Qi Guanyin about virginity and kissing were all my acting skills to disturb the atmosphere and prevent Qi Guanyin from speaking. Do you understand?" Courier and Long Wanda looked at each other. Sun Lang's gaze swept across the two men's faces before he pointed at Long Wanda and said with a gentle smile, "Go over there and do 50 fierce tiger landing stances." Long Wanda cried out, "Why?" Sun Lang said indifferently, "Because you laughed." Long Wanda said angrily, "I didn't." Sun Lang said expressionlessly, "You laughed in your heart." Long Wanda cried out, "You even care about this?" Immediately after, the young Russian realized that he had misspoken. Before Sun Lang could speak, he rushed to the foot of the wall at lightning speed and began to do a 360-degree somersault, and then an OTZ with a high degree of difficulty. Courier's expression was as usual as he looked at Long Wanda and said indifferently, "What is this?" Sun Lang said with a smile, "In the past, some corporal punishment methods were invented in the war. This is the lightest. You must know that those ruffians can't be suppressed by normal military laws. They take pride in being beaten with a rod. Fine is fine, and even demotion to a soldier is useless. If you want to let them know what's good for them, you need some special methods. As for how to use some special methods to silence those veterans who had experienced hundreds of battles and had a lot of bad habits, that was the secret of the world's great marshal." Courier looked at Long Wanda, who was somersaulting continuously, and praised, "You taught him really well." "It's just SOSO, Sun Lang said modestly. "I really don't like it." She immediately extended a terrifying proposition from Sun Lang's inference. "You just said that in Qi Guanyin's heart, the matter of his wife running away with someone else is not very important. He has more important things to do, so he can endure the shame and pain. Could it be another possibility?" Sun Lang's words made Crescent Moon tremble. Crescent Moon trembled. Crescent Moon trembled slightly. Her voice gradually turned cold. "Or, in his heart, the matter of his wife running away with someone else has never happened at all. All of this is just an act he and his wife put on?" Sun Lang frowned and then shook his head. "That's not very likely. Last night, I saw very clearly that the halberd that stabbed toward Madame Wang was condensed with the greatest anger and hatred. He really did want to kill his wife. It wasn't an act, and he didn't hold back at all. If I hadn't stopped him, I'm afraid Madame Wang would have died under Qi Guanyin's halberd last night. Even the seraph couldn't stop that attack." Courier muttered, "Could this be part of the plan? Qi Guanyin knew that you would stop him, so he put on that act?" Sun Lang recalled the scene last night and shook his head. "That's not it either. His shock at that time wasn't an act. He couldn't imagine that I could block that attack. That's really strange." Courier was a little irritated. If he didn't collude with his wife, then what is he planning to do? What is he hiding? Sun Lang said indifferently, "That's what I want to know." Mao Mei shook her head and said, "Since he's hiding something, he must have other plans. You can either kill him directly or force him to confess. Why don't you take action?" Sun Lang shook his head and said, "Everyone has secrets in their hearts. Everyone can keep something to themselves as long as they can bear the corresponding price. Because I've never asked for honesty and loyalty. Whether Qi Guanyin can get what he wants or regret it for the rest of his life, it's all up to him." Courier was puzzled. In other words, we're going to leave him alone? Of course not. I understand that he's hiding something, but it doesn't mean that I won't do anything. Sun Lang said calmly. I've already told him. Don't say that I didn't warn you. At this time, Long Wanda finally finished his 50 tiger landing moves. He walked over with a displeased expression and glared at Sun Lang. What are we going to do next? Sun Lang smiled slightly. Throw feces to ask for directions. Throw stones to ask for directions. After all, Long Wanda was a foreigner and his Chinese wasn't that good. He couldn't tell the key difference between throwing feces to ask for directions and throwing stones to ask for directions. That was at least a level 8 Chinese exam question. Relying on his intuition, he still read something from Sun Lang's face that made him uneasy. He took 2 steps back and said warily, What do you want to do? Sun Lang smiled and said, I'm going to do what he doesn't want me to do the most. When the governor and the general work together, the ruling power in this land, which was second only to the imperial edict, was almost unhindered and could be carried out with the most efficiency. After all, the war had just ended 2 years ago. The country's administrative system was still at its most efficient and hadn't been invaded by tradition, corruption, or aristocratic families. Qi Guanyin stretched out his hand and rubbed his face. Although his profound internal energy made him invulnerable to the cold and heat, and he was full of energy, he hadn't just not slept for a night. He had also encountered a drastic change that made him physically and mentally exhausted on that unforgettable night. The relatively young great general of Mingzhou sighed silently. What am I doing? He thought to himself. A cup of hot tea was pushed over. Hu Shouxin said indifferently, Do you need to rest? Qi Guanyin smiled politely to express his thanks. He shook his head and refused. No, I think I need to make a trip back to Hongshang to gather the army and mobilize the troops. Besides, the general's seal is still there. Although the generals of the various armies in Mingzhou all accept my orders, I can't be careless when it comes to mobilizing the army. It's better to be safe. Hu Shouxin's eyes moved, and then he said, Okay, I'll have Sun Lang accompany you. Qi Guanyin shook his head and said, No need. Doesn't he have something to do? Before he finished speaking, the roar of an engine came from the sky. It went from near to far and then disappeared into the distance. Qi Guanyin's expression changed. He pushed open the window and faintly saw 2 blazing angels disappear between the clouds. A moment later, Sun Lang appeared with a bucket of red paint. He smiled at the 3 of them and asked, How did the discussion go? Among the 3 of them, Lu Zhou's attitude was the most attentive. He said with a smile, We've reached a preliminary plan of cooperation. General Qi and I will use our seals to mobilize the troops. In 3 days at most, Mingzhou will be completely surrounded. The enemy won't have anywhere to hide. However, Hu Shouxin saw the bucket of red paint in Sun Lang's hand. What's that? At the mention of this, a furious expression appeared on Sun Lang's face. Sigh. Young people these days are really stubborn. If you don't listen to your elders, you'll be at a disadvantage. Didn't I tell Long Wanda and Courier to go out and kill the enemy? However, when I considered Long Wanda's combat prowess, I came up with a plan for him. You should know that most of the paint on mechas can increase the attributes of the mecha. I gave him a triple speed noodle paint. Hu Shouxin had a here-we-go-again expression on his face. What happened after that? After that, he refused to comply. He painted the red paint and made a stick-shaped object on his face. That would increase his speed and deter the enemy, but Long Wanda refused to comply. Sun Lang tossed the bucket of red paint to the side and sighed. Young people these days have fallen. They're too superstitious. When they see the color red, they'll think of a red-clad boy. Those are all rumors and false reports. They're not trustworthy. Lu Zhou spouted nonsense at a rapid pace. Qi Guanyin tried to speak a few times, but Lu Zhou cut him off. In the end, the Grand General could not hold it in any longer. He asked loudly, Where do they go? Sun Lang replied matter-of-factly, They went after that blazing angel, of course. What do you think? Qi Guanyin's expression changed slightly. No one knew what he was thinking. Sun Lang let out a hearty smile and patted Qi Guanyan's shoulder. He began to brazenly add fuel to the fire. He laughed and said, "Don't worry, these are two blazing angels. One is a death messenger, one is a lone ranger, and one is a scout. Both can heal, so it's very balanced. I've already given the order to kill all enemies when they encounter them. Think about it. The blazing angel can block machine gun bullets and rocket launchers, but can your wife block them?" The Grand General's eyes suddenly widened, and he stared at Sun Lang. Sun Lang was still smiling happily. "Brother, there's no need to thank me. I know that you can't do it, so let us do it for you." "No." Sun Lang blinked and smiled. "What did you say?" "I said no." Qi Guanyan's voice was a little hoarse. "I want to kill her with my own hands." Sun Lang smiled and said, "Then you'd better start praying to the gods and Buddhas to let your soldiers discover the Wang family's tracks first. Otherwise, I'm afraid you won't get what you want. You must know that the battlefield is constantly changing. You let the Wang family go yesterday, which has already caused you countless problems. However, I don't have such concerns, and neither do the Death Messenger and the Lone Ranger. If they discover the Wang family, they won't hesitate to open fire." Qi Guanyan's lips trembled. He clenched his fists, but he didn't know what to say. At this moment, Hu Shouxin broke the awkward silence and said, "General Qi, you still have feelings for your wife in your heart, don't you?" Qi Guanyan was stunned for a moment. Then he shook his head with an ugly expression. "No." Hu Shouxin and Sun Lang looked at each other and then sighed softly. Sun Lang slowly said, "I told you once yesterday, Qi Guanyan, if you're hiding something from me, it's best to say it. If there's a problem, everyone can help you solve it. If you insist on doing things your own way and insist on hiding it, that's also up to you. However, you'll have to bear the consequences yourself." Qi Guanyan was silent for a moment, then stiffly shook his head. "If you suspect me, the agreement can be nullified. If you want to capture this Qi, then feel free to do so." Sun Lang laughed. "If we capture you, will you allow yourself to be captured without putting up a fight?" Qi Guanyan closed his eyes and said, "Of course not." Sun Lang laughed again. "Can you resist?" The Grand General replied, "I'm not your match, but a competition of martial arts and putting one's life on the line are two different things. If you want to defeat me, perhaps it's very easy, but if I want to die, I'm afraid you won't be able to stop me. This is Marquis Jing'an's Fu. A decree has just been sent out, and many people know that I came to Mingzhou with you. If I die here, you'll probably find it very troublesome." "Are you threatening me?" Sun Lang's expression darkened. "Troublesome? Do you want to try? Your wife can shake your position with just a register. Tensei Province can pin any blame on you. If that woman can do it, do you think I can't do it?" Disregarding everything else, you attacked the Li Huiyin guards with the intention of starting a war between the two countries. If I'm willing, I can first kill you and then nail you to the pillar of shame in Empress Tuesday. I guarantee that no one will remember or sympathize with you." He reached out and pulled Qi Guanyan's collar, saying calmly, "Don't think too highly of yourself, Qi Guanyan. What tricks do you want to play?" Chapter 476. Qi Guanyan's expression did not change as he looked at Sun Lang calmly. He said slowly, "What tricks do I want to play? I want to ask you, what tricks do you want to play?" Sun Lang said coldly, "What do you mean?" Qi Guanyan gritted his teeth and said, "Who are you?" Sun Lang said lightly, "I am Sun Lang." The general stared at the person in front of him and clenched his fists. He said in a low voice, "Who were you before?" Hu Shouxin and Lu Shoyan's expressions changed. They looked at each other, and their bodies suddenly tensed up. This subconscious vigilance did not escape Qi Guanyan's eyes. After all, although the four people present were all powerful, there was a difference in strength. Other than Sun Lang, Qi Guanyan's martial arts was the highest. It was impossible for him not to see through it. If he was only 40% confident before, now he was 60% confident. He let out a complicated laugh and said, "You won't tell me? Then let me ask you again, why does Hu Shouxin listen to your orders? Why are you not afraid of Tensei Province at all? Why is Lu Shoyan so careful around you? Why did Courier, a Li Huiyin guard, become your lackey without a second word? Why does the Lone Ranger listen to you? The general looked into Sun Lang's eyes and laughed hysterically. Also, there was a Zhenzhou general, a prefecture magistrate, a Tianyuan general, and 2 Li Huiyin guards. They were all top figures in the 2 countries. You sat at the head of the table and gave out orders calmly. Why are you so familiar with it? How many times have you done it before? At this point, his body was already trembling. Qi Guanyin looked at Sun Lang, and his voice became louder and louder. Also, you are on good terms with the Li Huiyin guards, allied with the Zhang family of Mingzhou, colluded with the Lai Yin divine power, colluded with the old subordinates of the north, and try to control the military and political power of Mingzhou. What do you want to do? His words were infused with his inner qi, shaking the roof until it buzzed, and the sound lingered in the air. Hu Shouxin and Lu Shouyin had already stood up, faintly blocking Qi Guanyin's escape route. Sun Lang's expression was calm and without any ripples. He said indifferently, "Although it's a little late to understand, I've finally woken up." Qi Guanyin smiled miserably. "I should have realized it long ago. Unfortunately, there have been too many things bothering me these days, so much so that my mind has been in a mess. I have no idea what to do, and I am in a constant state of anxiety. I have been blinded by a leaf, and I have lost my dignity." A lowly general from Mingzhou, Qi Guanyin, greets the Grand Marshal. He looked at Sun Lang and said sternly, "Who am I to be honored by the Martial Arts Hall's Sword Pavilion General? You really think too highly of me." Sun Lang sighed and shook his head. "The reason why I didn't tell you is to avoid the awkward situation now. After all, after I reveal my identity, the loose interpersonal relationship will become awkward. Your position will be forced to a dead end. Some things that can be fooled first can't be fooled." He glanced at Qi Guanyin. "I just didn't expect that you not only guessed it, but also took the initiative to reveal it." The Grand General sighed. "I can't pretend to be a fool anymore. I don't want it anymore." "Then let's be direct." Sun Lang said with his hands behind his back. "What do you want?" Qi Guanyin laughed and asked back, "What do I want?" Sun Lang said indifferently, "What you want. You're clear in your heart. First of all, the power in your hands will not shrink at all. The army, status, and wealth will not be reduced at all. Other than that, you don't need to think about those troublesome relationships, and you don't need to wag your tail and beg for pity in Tensei province. You will receive the true dignity and honor of a professional soldier." Qi Guanyin's face was expressionless, like a silent stone statue. Sun Lang said again, "We will carry out more thorough reforms and opening up and establish closer ties with the Lihua nation. We can get more and better things from the Russians and even the Western world, whether it's weapons, equipment, supplies, or the workers' technology and machines to produce them. You can use them to build the new era army that we discussed back then. Better training, better morale, equipment, tactics, logistics, and medical treatment. A professional army whose body and mind are like steel." Qi Guanyin still didn't show any emotion and listened silently. Sun Lang glanced at him. "Through building this army, with this army, you can realize your dreams. You've taken the wrong path, you've given up on the things, you'll have a chance to start all over again. You can wash away the stains on your body, and you won't be ashamed to face your father. You can straighten your back and be an upright person. And your wife, if you can't bear to part with her, I won't make things difficult for her. To me, it doesn't make any difference whether I kill her or not. I won't haggle over every little thing with a tool. We all know who the culprit is." Sun Lang said slowly, "The person who really needs to pay the price is in the capital. The person who controls the lives of others at will and uses everyone as a chess piece. We need to punish her." Qi Guanyin glanced at Hu Shouxin and Lu Shouyin. "Is this how you persuade them?" "Of course not," Sun Lang replied. "Each of you is different, and you have different beliefs and pursuits. Of course, you have to use different methods." Qi Guanyin turned his head, looked at Sun Lang calmly, and said slowly, "But I refuse. This is not what I want." Sun Lang said with interest, "Oh, then what do you want?" A smile appeared at the corner of Qi Guanyin's mouth. He closed his eyes, and an expression of enlightenment appeared on his face. Perhaps this answer came after a long struggle, Or perhaps this answer only took a moment of enlightenment. He said softly, I want the flames of war to cease and the world to be peaceful. Sun Lang was stunned for a moment, and then he laughed. Qi Guanyin looked at him. Is this very funny? Sun Lang asked back, Is this not funny? The highest military commander of a province in the most powerful military country in the world is a pacifist who delusionally wants world peace. Is this not funny? Qi Guanyin replied, The purpose of becoming a soldier is to bring back peace. Believe it or not, if there was no sky demon, no Tianyuan war, I would be willing to stay in my hometown for the rest of my life, to inherit my father's position, to be a colonel who will never amount to anything. I would rather never have the chance to go to the battlefield and kill the enemy. Sunran Sun Lang said, Childish, naive, stupid, laughable. As a soldier, don't have such senseless thoughts. Qi Guanyin, I've been fighting for 6 years, and I only know one thing clearly, and that is that war will never change. As long as the creatures known as humans are not extinct, then true peace will never come. Because of desire, selfishness, plunder, and unfairness, these things that live on the souls of humans cast a shadow on the ground, and that is war. He tapped the general's chest and repeated, True peace does not exist. Even if you kill all the people over the age of 5 in the world and ensure that the remaining children can grow up smoothly, their pure hearts that have not been influenced by human society will one day erupt with evil thoughts. When I was young, I used to believe that human nature is good. Now, I believe that human nature is evil. Sun Lang's eyes were deep as he examined Qi Guanyin's soul. He said indifferently, All soldiers should believe that human nature is evil. True peace will never exist. The speed of human degeneration is much faster than you can imagine. There are some things that you can't stop at all. Qi Guanyin looked at Sun Lang and said calmly, But at least I can stop you. Sun Lang asked, Stop me from what? The general said solemnly, Stop you from starting a war. What a joke, Sun Lang said casually. You really need to change your naivety and stupidity. As the general of Mingzhou, haven't you read the monthly reports of the court? In the entire imperium, the one who wants to start a war the most is the woman in the capital. The one behind her, who is somewhat hesitant, should be her father. The ones behind her are probably the noble families and their spokespersons who have made a fortune in the Tianyuan War. Compared to them, my purpose seems to be the purest. Qi Guanyin gnashed his teeth and said, But you are the most dangerous one. Sun Lang opened his hands and said, Are you kidding? Last night, your henchmen were yelling and shouting, and I only threw a few cans of herring at them. Dangerous my ass. The general looked at Sun Lang in the eyes and said, Because you have hatred in your heart. You are much more dangerous than anyone else. I can see that because I used to hate too. Sun Lang said casually, Who did you hate? Is that very important? Qi Guanyin asked back. Then, he hesitated for a moment and said casually, Besides, after you came back from the dead, you did not indulge yourself in pleasure, nor did you reveal your identity and return to the capital. Instead, you were secretly planning these things. It can only mean one thing, which is that the unsolved case on the Great Desolate Mountain is probably really an unsolved case. His eyes suddenly became sharp. Looking at Sun Lang, he asked, If you really want me to work for you, please solve my confusion first. What is the truth of the battle on the Great Desolate Mountain? I want you to tell me yourself, although I've already guessed most of it when I see you now. Since you have guessed it, why do you still ask? Sun Lang said casually, I am not in the mood to repeat what happened on the Great Desolate Mountain, just like you would not go around telling people that your wife ran away with another man to gain sympathy. I don't need any sympathy or justice. I will take back what I have lost with my own hands. Qi Guanyin shook his head and said, Then why are you trying to rope me in? Why do you think I'll be roped in by you? Sun Lang looked at Qi Guanyin and said casually, Because you have always had hatred in your heart. You have compromised and slowly accepted your fate. You thought it was good this way, but in the end, you were ruthlessly stabbed with a knife and the pain was unforgettable. I also understand the feeling of being betrayed. I thought we could understand each other. It's not the same. Qi Guanyin looked at Sun Lang and said slowly, "We are not the same. Other than hatred, there is something I want more. Just like I told you before, there is something that is above hatred." "Then congratulations," Sun Lang said casually. "What is it?" Qi Guanyin smiled and said, "I think you will never understand." Sun Lang snorted. Just as he was about to speak, Hu Shouxin patted him on the shoulder and then said to Qi Guanyin, "Sun Lang has already promised me that he will not take the initiative to start a war and end the peace that countless comrades have fought for. You could trust him on this. After all, today's peace is also a result of his efforts." He organized his words and said, "This matter involves a lot of things at once. I'm afraid it's hard to explain. You didn't know Sun Lang before, so it's normal for you to have doubts. I had similar hesitations before. It's really hard to choose between loyalty and righteousness. But that night, when I was on the brink of death, I finally realized something. Old Hu's words were extremely sincere and affectionate, which finally made Qi Guanyin look at him. Sun Lang aside, Hu Shouxin had a great reputation in the army and was very popular. Everyone knew that he was loyal and pure and was an indomitable man. Qi Guanyin usually admired him very much, so he was also puzzled as to why he was willing to do this kind of thing with Sun Lang. Hu Shouxin looked at Qi Guanyin and said seriously, "Do you still not understand, General Qi? You were once a puppet of Tensei Province and are still living in the terror they created. Do you still not understand one thing? The Empire's biggest enemy and threat is not Sun Lang, but Tensei Province." Qi Guanyin's expression changed slightly. "What, you don't believe me?" Hu Shouxin sneered and said, "Let's not talk about holding a general of a province hostage or about your wife. You've heard about me, haven't you? Tensei Province even wants to kill me. Is there anything they don't dare to do? They're the ones who smuggled the demonic weapons, colluded with the demons, forged the demonic swords, and colluded with the Leaf Fire. General Qi, why do you turn a deaf ear to these things and keep suspecting Sun Lang's motives and intentions?" Qi Guanyin was speechless for a moment, but he still said stubbornly, consolidating the forces of the Ming province, forcing the empire's capital, calling for foreign aid, and conquering the north. All of this is to build momentum and make the imperial court wary, so that he can achieve his goal through political means. Sun Lang said indifferently, "We're not familiar with each other, but you should have studied my commanding style. I never fight an unprepared war." He looked at Qi Guanyin and said indifferently, "As a general of the Ming province, you should know that, given the current state of the country, even if I take control of the Ming province's military and political power, my chances of winning aren't very high if I directly declare a rebellion." Qi Guanyin asked, "Then what are you planning to do?" "I told you, build momentum," Sun Lang said with a smile. "I told you they'll take back what I've lost one by one." Qi Guanyin said in disbelief, "You want to return to the imperial court?" Sun Lang said with a smile, "No, there are 100 ways to go back if I want to. I can even take a sword and kill my way back, but that'll be letting them off too easily. I just want to go back openly and be asked to go back by the emperor." Chapter 477. Now that things had come to this point, it could be said that they had laid all their cards on the table. Qi Guanyin was not stupid. He understood what Sun Lang meant. Asking the emperor to invite him back was no different from trying to usurp the throne. The only difference was who would sit on the nominal seat. It was clear that the legend in front of him had lost all respect and loyalty to the imperial power. He said slowly, "You want to take over the power and abolish the throne?" Sun Lang said proudly, "It's more complicated than you think. There is a problem with the system of this country. Only I can save it. They will know what the right choice is sooner or later." Qi Guanyin looked at Sun Lang and said calmly, "This is a great sin." Sun Lang said calmly, "Who will decide? Who can decide? Who dares to decide?" "Of course, it's the emperor. The emperor doesn't dare. Otherwise, the court wouldn't be silent. Otherwise, the censorate wouldn't be silent. The ministers are supposed to figure out the intentions of their superiors. Therefore, the smart and wise ministers feel the fear and hesitation in the emperor's heart. They're also silent, waiting for the first fool to jump out. Sun Lang's voice was deep and obscure, containing a coldness that could see through everything. Qi Guanyin couldn't help but shiver. The man in front of him was a legend, the greatest general and warrior in the world. When he pointed his well-known courage, ferocity, cruelty, wisdom at the country and monarch he had once served, who could stop him? He had seen through everything. God knew how many possibilities he had deduced in the past 2 years to understand everything that had happened in the court. He even understood the thoughts of the monarch. The emperor doesn't dare. The emperor who defeated the sky demon and whose name was recorded in history doesn't dare. This great ruler, the most powerful person in the world, has done countless things that he thought were right. So he doesn't dare now. Sun Lang chuckled and said, he doesn't even dare to announce this to the world. He doesn't dare to use the power granted to him by the Queen of Heaven to announce my crime loudly in his country. Why doesn't he dare? Qi Guanyin's voice trembled slightly. What did you do? What did you do? What do you have in your hands? Do you want to know? Sun Lang said calmly, then follow me. In the future, in the Golden Palace, when I am equal to the supreme power of this land, when I am the only voice in the entire imperial court, I can tell you the truth. At that time, I will allow you to make the choice you want to make. The general closed his eyes and said calmly, you will usurp the throne? Normally, Sun Lang said. Do you know why the Empress has always been wary of me? 8 years ago, she told me personally that she thought I was very dangerous. Qi Guanyin opened his eyes and looked at Sun Lang. He was very curious about the reason. Sun Lang told him the reason. The former general's eyes flashed with reminiscence. The scene at that time was like a dream. Even now, when he thought about it, it felt like a lifetime ago. He said softly, because I have no respect for the imperial power in my heart. I am not a cynical lunatic, not a traitor who does not know the immensity of heaven and earth, and not a pretentious peddler who looks down on the imperial power. I don't have it at all. I don't have the concept of the imperial power in my heart. Sun Lang looked into Qi Guanyin's eyes and concluded, in other words, from the very beginning, I have felt from the bottom of my heart that something like an emperor should never exist. He was not lying. It was not a lie. This man was telling the truth. Qi Guanyin looked at Sun Lang in shock. He could not imagine why Sun Lang would have such an idea. He did not know what a country without an emperor would be like. The empire had been established for thousands of years. People were used to being loyal to the royal family. Even if time turned back to a long time ago and the dynasty changed, it was just another family name sitting under the sky. How could there be no emperor? Sun Lang smiled. So, you don't have to worry about me usurping the throne. For the time being, I don't have that spiritual need, and I am not used to a group of people kneeling and shouting "Long live" to me. At this stage, compared to the life of an emperor who faces the south and calls himself a loner, I prefer the life of an important minister who often sleeps in the inner palace at night, lies on the dragon bed, and sleeps with the emperor's wife. Sun Lang thought about the various powers of the world's powerful ministers. He felt very moved. After all, people like Dong Zhuo and Aman had already set up various positive and negative examples for him. Moreover, there is the East India Company far away and Wall Street close by. Those gentlemen also provided him with another way to manipulate the country, the so-called combination of China and the West. He had to grasp both hands and be firm with both hands. Sun Lang had already made up his mind. He smiled and said, "Do you understand?" "You." Qi Guanyin interrupted him. "That's no different from usurping the throne. The power of the country is in the hands of others, and the affairs of the country are in your hands. The emperor becomes a decoration. What's the difference between this and a rebellion?" Sun Lang smiled. At least the emperor is left with dignity. At least his ancestral temple won't be razed, and he won't be laughed at by the world if he dies in the hands of others. At least the court won't be in turmoil, and the people's hearts will be in chaos. At least the war you've always wanted to avoid. At least the most innocent people won't have to suffer too much. Qi Guanyin was so angry that he laughed. This is the first time I've heard that a powerful minister can be so righteous. Sun Lang sneered. What? Who said I can't be a powerful minister? If I were a powerful minister, there wouldn't have been the Great Bear Mountain 2 years ago. I would have been a marquis by now. Even an idiot like you can become the general of Mingzhou. What do you think I can do? I've fought for this country for 6 years. I've made great military contributions. I'm number one in Tianyuan. There's no reward for me. Qi Guanyin, let me ask you. Just because of this, should I be punished by the court, suspected by the emperor, and abandoned? His eyes were as sharp as knives. He looked into Qi Guanyin's eyes without backing down. Tell me, what should you do when you encounter such a situation? You've been taught by your father since you were young. You want to be a righteous and magnanimous soldier. The man standing in front of you was once the most dazzling and flawless general of this country. You can almost guess his ending. Now you can reprimand him and treat him coldly as a loyal minister. But the injustice he's suffered, who's going to speak up for him? When the birds are gone, the bough will be put away. When the birds and beasts die, the hawks and dogs will also die. Since ancient times, people have regarded those famous ministers and generals who retire after their achievements and return to their hometowns as wise, and those who cling to power and are punished by the emperor as mediocre and boorish. Let me ask you, do you think this is normal? Qi Guanyin was greatly shocked. If Sun Lang had only threatened and tempted him, and if Sun Lang had only cursed the court and complained about injustice, he wouldn't have thought much of it. But these words had indeed poked at the bottom of his heart. His father was a righteous soldier. Although his military rank wasn't high, he had lived an upright life. His father had taught him since he was young to be righteous and indomitable. He had to maintain the righteousness in his heart and not be swallowed up by the dirty world and wallow in a mire with those despicable people. He had once remembered his father's teachings. He had once thought that the life of a soldier was very simple. He only needed to bravely kill the enemy and serve the country. Then he would be able to achieve great things and bring glory to his ancestors. But he was wrong. He ran into walls everywhere in the army. He was ostracized by his colleagues and made difficult for by his superiors. He didn't even have the chance to go into battle. How could he achieve great things? The soldiers he was assigned to were all old and weak. How could he go into battle and kill the enemy? Gradually, he discovered that the world was different from what he had imagined. The army had never been so pure. The darkness hidden under the military tents made him nauseous. He didn't know why things were like this. In this confusion and pain, he couldn't achieve anything. His will was depressed, and he had nowhere to use his abilities. He gradually began to waver. Every night he tossed and turned in bed. He was tormented by a terrifying thought. He wanted to do this, but he didn't dare to do it. Until, when he returned home again, his wife told him something. At first, he thought that it was just a trivial matter in the conversation between husband and wife. But now, it seemed that it was the beginning of a premeditated plan. It was an abyss. He thought of those dark days, the time when he finally gave up all hope and decided to join the Tensei province. He knelt in front of his father's grave and wailed for an entire night, kowtowing countless times. It wasn't that he was a spineless son, but that the world didn't allow him to be spineless. It wasn't that he was greedy for riches and honor. It was just that he couldn't use what he had learned. The sky demon was aggressive, the country was in danger, and the people were in a terrible situation. A real man couldn't just stay out of it. Then he became a dog. The funny thing was that being a dog was better than being a human. He was just a dog wagging its tail and begging for mercy, but everyone welcomed him with smiles. His superior nodded and bowed. He was humble to the core. The generals that he didn't even have the right to meet on normal days actually came to see him. Because of one person's words, the whole world changed. His life had become so bright and beautiful. His superiors favored him. His commanding general admired him in every way possible, and his comrades called him brothers. It was just like a dream he had before he joined the army. But he wasn't happy at all because he paid the heaviest price. He betrayed his father and himself. Every time he thought of this, he felt as if his soul was being torn apart. Qi Guanyin silently looked at Sun Lang in front of him. The man in front of him probably couldn't have imagined that there was a time when a legend of this person was the only light in his great confusion and pain. A role model, a saint. It was almost impossible to describe the significance of this person in the past with words. It was like making up for the missing piece of regret in the hearts of those who had compromised with reality. It told everyone that hard work would lead to results. It told everyone that there was fairness in the world. It told everyone that good would be rewarded with good, and evil would be punished with evil. It wasn't empty talk. Qi Guanyin tightly clenched his fists. Every letter he had exchanged with the Grand Marshal was like a treasure to him. Every time he received a reply, he would be overjoyed. He had once imagined how good it would have been if he had been under this person's command. He had once imagined, if he had been in his position, would he have been able to do as well as him? Then, the legend fell. The man in front of him probably couldn't have imagined that there was a time when the legend of this person was the only light in his great confusion and pain. But now, his appearance had shattered too many things, especially his question. It made him speechless, and he didn't know how to answer. He had once been a role model, a saint, and a role model for the soldiers of the world. He had once been divine and flawless, and had once been looked up to by the world. Now, the perfect soldier had been betrayed by his king. Sun Lang's question echoed in his ears. I ask you, if the king wants the subject to die, then the subject has no choice but to die. Who the fuck made this rule? Tell me loudly, will you fall for it? Qi Guanyin couldn't answer. He wasn't so shameless. He didn't have the right to do so. He could not say that a soldier should be indomitable and magnanimous. They should serve the country and the people. They should make contributions and have no scruples. Even if they were punished by the king, they should accept death calmly and have no regrets. After all, he didn't do either of those things. Sun Lang patted Qi Guanyin's shoulder and softened his tone. You and I both know that's wrong. Now, let me tell you, the king shouldn't do as he pleases. Some things have to be corrected. There are too many injustices in this world. We can't solve them all at once, but we can do it one by one. This is wrong. Wrong. The king is wrong. It's wrong to cast the bow aside after the birds are killed. It's wrong to be open and above board. Qi Guanyin suddenly felt a great fear rising from the bottom of his heart. His loyalty didn't allow him to criticize the king, but his experience allowed him to judge right and wrong. He was always in a difficult position because he had taken the wrong path from the beginning. He couldn't turn back, but he hoped to turn back. The Grand General's body swayed. He turned around and glared at Hu Shouxin and Lu Zhou, who had different expressions on their faces. He said sternly, What about the two of you? Do you think so as well? Do you think his actions are right as well? Lu Shouyin averted his gaze. However, he snorted disdainfully inwardly. I've studied history before. What's the big deal if the king doesn't know his place and his subjects defect to the enemy? If the king wants to kill me, should I stretch my neck out and let him cut me? I'm not an idiot. The Grand General's words have struck a chord in my heart. The imperial power should be limited. The world should be ruled by the king and his subjects. The king has too much power. He can kill whoever he wants, causing the hearts of the people in the court to waver. The loyal subjects can't be protected. If this goes on, it won't be a good thing for the country. Now that the Tianyuan War is over and the world is at peace, it's time to reign in the imperial power. I didn't expect the Grand General to agree with the consensus of the civil officials as well. What a pleasant surprise. In that case, I can write a letter to my old friends. With that thought in mind, he said calmly, It's not like there's no precedent for an important subject acting as regent. The country is still strong and prosperous. The saint once said that the people are the most important, the country comes second, and the king is the least important. Hu Shouxin said, What I care about is this country and the well-being of the people. Qi Guanyin looked at the two of them and laughed bitterly. Suddenly, he spat out a mouthful of blood and fell to the ground with his back facing the sky. Ouch! The three of them were shocked. They rushed forward and supported Qi Guanyin. However, they saw the Grand General's face was as pale as a sheet. His breathing was weak. He was extremely weak. Lu Shouyin had some medical knowledge. He checked the Grand General's pulse and said, Great joy and great sorrow. His mind is in turmoil, and his internal injuries have worsened. Was he injured last night as well? Sun Lang nodded and said, yes. Let him rest in bed first. Wait. His eyes flashed as though he had thought of a better idea. I have a bold idea. Chapter 478. Last night, Qi Guanyin had personally seen through his wife's vicious plan. In his agitated state of mind, he had forced himself to take action. Furthermore, he had forcibly exchanged blows with Sun Lang, one of the few great masters in the world. He had already suffered internal injuries. Now, when he was in confrontation with Sun Lang, he recalled the knot in his heart that had troubled him for a long time, and a myriad of thoughts came one after another, causing him to be at a loss and bewildered. After all, he'd really spent his entire life in extreme contradiction and pain, and if it was anyone else, that person would have either given up on himself or gone mad. Now, his agitated state of mind had once again affected his internal injuries. He could no longer hold on and fell to the ground, vomiting blood. These days, his troubled thoughts and exhausted mind had aggravated the outbreak of his internal injuries. Now, the great general of Mingzhou was extremely weak. He lay in old Hu's arms, his face pale and his breath weak. In front of him, Sun Lang showed a mysterious smile. Everyone, I have a bold idea. Hu Shouxin and Lord Lu both looked at him in astonishment. They did not know what this guy was planning to do. Sun Lang raised his finger and reminded them, look, now this is our territory, right? The two nodded in unison. Sun Lang pointed at them again. The three of us are in the same group, right? The two lackeys nodded again. Sun Lang's smile became more and more amiable. Finally, he pointed at the weak Qi Guanyin, his face full of malice. In other words, the current Qi Guanyin is completely helpless. This is our territory, and we are all on the same side. Now that he has fallen into our hands, even if we do anything to him, he won't be able to resist. Even if we cut his throat, we won't be able to save him. Lu Shouyin showed a horrified expression. Hu Shouxin stared and said, what do you want to do? Sun Lang looked up to the sky and laughed like the villain in The Secret Agent. His voice could stop young girls from falling in love and make women tremble. Even the weak Qi Guanyin was shocked and opened his eyes wide. The marshal laughed for a while before stopping. He looked at the three people in front of him and smiled calmly. It's not that I want to do anything. I just want the people outside to think that I'm doing something. Hu Shouxin was a decent person, and although Lu Shouyin wasn't too decent, he didn't know the details of this matter, so he couldn't understand the meaning behind Sun Lang's words. Only Qi Guanyin, although suffering from internal injuries, was still a famous general. His mind was clear, and he immediately understood Sun Lang's intentions. Only a top military expert could determine the intentions of another master of the art of war. A look of panic appeared on his face. His eyes widened, and his emotions surged. He almost spat out another mouthful of blood. The Grand General anxiously said, you can't. Sun Lang laughed and said, that's not up to you. I'll do whatever I want to do. He. You should save some energy. Qi Guanyin still wanted to struggle, but Sun Lang's finger was like the wind. Dense internal energy came out of his finger, and he had already controlled the movement of Qi Guanyin's dantian. He looked at Qi Guanyin's shocked and angry expression and said calmly, rest for a few days. You've suffered internal injuries twice in a row. If you don't rest, you'll be in trouble. Sun Lang retracted his finger, thought for a while, and nodded. Hand over your imperial army. He patted Qi Guanyin's body twice. In two brilliant lights, the halberd and the chain of the imperial army turned into sharp shapes and fell into Sun Lang's hand. He temporarily cut off the connection with Qi Guanyin. Seeing this divine skill, Lu Shouyin's eyes almost popped out. The imperial army was the foundation of Hutu's prosperity. The warriors who were given the imperial army were the most solid guardians of this country. Although Qi Guanyin was suffering from internal injuries, his martial arts were excellent. He was still the most powerful person in Hutu. However, his imperial army was easily taken out by Sun Lang. It was not an exaggeration to say that such a terrifying power was unparalleled in the world. Suddenly, He remembered a secret taboo in this dynasty. He quickly lowered his head and became more humble and respectful. He was afraid that Sun Lang would notice even the slightest clue. Old Hu, you are in charge of watching him. Hey, Qi Guanyin, I know what you want to do. Sun Lang instructed, then said to General Qi, who had his eyes closed and was silent. But the person I want to recruit is a brave and invincible iron-boned Jinzhou general. I will find a way to solve the knot in your heart and problem for you. After all, it is customary to help him complete the recruitment task before recruiting a member, but if you want to forcefully condense your power to break through the shackles, that's up to you. However, if this causes your internal injuries to worsen, your power to decline, and you can't recover after 3 to 5 years of cultivation, your value will be greatly reduced. If you're no longer useful, I'll have to make use of your wife. I'll let her display her greatest value as a spy in the heavenly policy residence to make up for your loss. Hearing this, Qi Guanyin opened his eyes and said in a low voice, "Despicable." Sun Lang laughed. "This idiot is not very bright. Why do you think I am wasting my time here with you? You fed Wu Song with good wine and meat because you hoped that he would help you defeat Jiang Minshun and take back the Merry Woods to continue making money. I helped you resist the Tensei province, resolve the death disaster, and even helped you take back your wife. Of course, I am counting on you to help me. Do you think I should help you for free? Of course, I don't do business at a loss. If you can't count on me in the end, then I will definitely find a way to recoup my losses from other places. Don't you think so?" Qi Guanyin said in a low voice. I don't need your help." Sun Lang laughed even more happily. "You really don't need it? Are you sure?" Qi Guanyin wanted to answer with a resounding yes, but for some reason, he couldn't say it. He tilted his head to one side and sighed silently. "You see, isn't this good? Your internal injury has relapsed, and you can't help. You don't have to show up to avoid trouble. I will take care of the rest for you. After all, you don't have any good ideas." Sun Lang spread out his hands and said, "Anyway, there is still time. Before that, you can think about it." Qi Guanyin still didn't say anything. Sun Lang took his silence as a yes. He turned to Hu Shouxin and said gently, "Take care of him. Don't let him run away. If something goes wrong, a stage play with you as the main character will be released. At that time, I guarantee that from Ireland to Chiton, your image of loving your wife and protecting your daughter will be known by everyone." For old Hu, this threat was 100 times more effective than being beheaded. He flew into a rage, but there was nothing he could do. Although he gritted his teeth, he still had to admit defeat. He said repeatedly, Okay, I know. If there's nothing else, get out of here. What's the hurry?" Sun Lang sneered lightly. Acting has to be done thoroughly. He went out first, called a maid, asked her to call Butler Su, and then asked Su Qingwan to do this. Although beauty, Su had an expression of, "You must be going to harm people again." She still went there in person and arranged all the things Sun Lang asked. Sun Lang then went to look for Miss Zhao and whispered to her for a while. Zhao Feihuang was indeed Zhao Feihuang. After listening to a few words, she understood Sun Lang's meaning. The two looked at each other and smiled. Coincidentally, they let out a hee-hee laughter. They had reached a consensus and began to wallow in the mire together. After whispering to each other for a while, Miss Zhao helped to perfect a few details. Finally, she patted her chest and promised, "Leave it to me." Sun Lang smiled and said, "Will it work? If it doesn't work, let old Hu do it. It won't be a problem." Ms. Zhao smiled unhurriedly and said, "Although guild leader who is also from the army, he is upright and disdains the officialdom of Mingzhou. Although he has the Guild of Rangers as a source of intelligence, I don't think he will bother to study the complicated interpersonal relationships in the officialdom of Mingzhou. If you let him do it, he probably won't have any clue and will make mistakes. But I'm different. The civil and military officials of Mingzhou are all in my heart," she said confidently. Looking at Sun Lang, she pursed her lips and said with a smile, "The only thing I need to worry about is that I am not a military person after all. Some things are just theoretical after all, and there may be some mistakes compared with reality. At this point, Lady Zhao mischievously blinked her eyes. However, with an unparalleled general who once shook the world to give pointers and fill in the gaps, such a small matter shouldn't be a problem at all. Hearing that, Sun Lang smiled and said, "That's true. Besides, we're trying to lure the snake out of its hole this time. You don't have to do it perfectly. You have to make a mistake that is neither too big nor too small. I know better than you when it comes to the severity of the matter." Miss Zhao's eyes narrowed into crescents as she nodded hard. Sun Lang smiled and said, "You seem very happy." Zhao Feihuang said with a smile, "Of course. I'm more than happy to be of help to Sun Lang. You can only discuss such things with me, Sun Lang. Even if Zhang Yinluo has another 100 years, he won't be able to beat me in this aspect." Sun Lang looked at Miss Zhao, who was smiling from the bottom of her heart, and his heart was moved. Apart from other things, this girl's skill in flirting was top-notch. That's why it's said that people just don't know, they just can't be predicted. This is the so-called nature makes fools of people. Miss Zhao had thousands of tender feelings and thousands of exquisite skills. Although she had worked hard, she was still inferior in the course of history. Even if she had thousands of tricks up her sleeve, she couldn't display them. She was naturally at a disadvantage. This was also the reason why Miss Zhao complained all day that Zhang Yinluo was too pretentious and did not take the advantage of a good spear. She mocked Yinluo all day long for playing like this despite having a good hand. It was true that if Miss Zhao had Yinluo's body, she would most likely become the girl who saved the world. She might be able to do what the Hutu emperor failed to do with all the power of the country. Such big breasts, such a good figure, such a beautiful face, and the most important thing is that she is able to resist the great strength of a bodyguard. She is also so considerate, clever, and knows how to tease and play. Let's not talk about getting what I want and living together forever. Even if you want me to put down my hatred and live in seclusion for a year or so, I'm afraid it won't be a difficult thing, alas. The world really made fools of people. Sun Lang looked at Miss Zhao and seemed to want to say something. Then he saw a flash of light on the other side, and housekeeper Su, who was wearing a lake green dress, came over with a few servants. When Su Qingwan saw her family's eldest miss standing beside Sun Lang, she instinctively wanted to go up and stop them. But when she saw the sincere joy and happiness on Miss Zhao's face, housekeeper Su sighed in her heart. She had already faintly heard some rumors about Sun Lang's true identity these days. Regardless of whether the matter of the demonic tool that day was a coincidence or fate, Marquis Jingon Fu could forget about cutting ties with this man in this lifetime. This was something that could not be resolved no matter how much she begged. And the smile on eldest Mrs. face was from the bottom of her heart. It could be said that ever since she met Sun Lang, eldest Miss became more and more cheerful and happy. Su Qingwan secretly sighed in her heart and looked deeply at Sun Lang. Then she went up to greet him and said in a calm tone, "Sir Sun, I have already prepared the people and things. Everything will be done according to your instructions. I'll have to trouble you." Sun Lang smiled and then turned to look at Miss Zhao. Miss Zhao also blinked and revealed a bright and beautiful smile. Sun Lang nodded and said, "Since everything is already prepared, then let us begin." Under the direction of the housekeeper, several servants carried a soft sedan into the side hall and carried Qi Guanyin out. The Grand General's limbs were weak. He gazed at Sun Lang from afar, as if he wanted to say something, but he only received a mischievous wave of the other party's hand. Then, he was arranged to stay in a spacious but heavily guarded courtyard. Throughout the entire process, there were several witnesses. Whether it was the servants carrying the sedan or a few servants who happened to pass by, they all saw this scene. Under Miss Zhao's personal supervision, a perfect chain of witnesses was slowly being woven. How it would be used, and how it would be used still required further work. Hu Shouxin stood beside Sun Lang and gazed at the courtyard that Qi Guanyin was staying in. He already knew Sun Lang's goal and said, "Playing it so big, aren't you afraid that Qi Guanyin will hate you?" Sun Lang said cheerfully, "Killing him will only take one strike, but if I want to perfectly take over Ming province, it's worth the effort and risk. Qi Guanyin, it's a pity. Fate really makes fools of people. I don't mind giving a person like this a chance to start all over again. Hu Shouxin asked indifferently. What if you fail? Sun Lang said decisively. Ming Province's geographical location is special, so we can't afford to lose it. However, without Butcher Qi, we won't have to eat hairy pigs. With my military achievements, it won't be difficult for me to become the Grand General of Ming Province. It's just that the original plan was to quickly take control of Ming Province before the court could react and use it as a bargaining chip to force the emperor. If we fail, Ming Province will become a bargaining chip for the royal family. With this in and out, we'll lose 2 provinces. No matter how you look at it, it's a loss. Hu Shouxin nodded thoughtfully. Actually, it's not that far off. Sun Lang said faintly. If we can't count on Qi Guanyin, we can use the Wang family's account book to forcefully take over Ming Province with Lu Shouyin's cooperation. As for the troops, we can move them from the neighboring Song Province. After I enter the capital, we can call Xiangdao over to wrap things up. Hearing this name, Hu Shouxin's eyebrows twitched. But if we do this, I'm afraid many people will die. I hope Qi Guanyin knows his limits. After leaving these words, Sun Lang turned around and looked at Miss Zhao, who had been silent all this time. He smiled and said, How is it? Are you prepared to be the Grand General of Ming Province? Chapter 479. Inside a study in the Marquis's mansion, there were 2 desks. Lu Shouyin and Zhao Fei Huang sat on either side. Su Qingwan held a sword in her hand as she leaned against the wall and rested with her eyes closed. The study was guarded by the Marquis's mansion's elite kamikaze soldiers armed with sharp weapons. There were no maids or servants around. Sun Lang stood in the center. A defensive map that covered the entire Ming province was hung behind him. From the dangers of the mountains and rivers to the disposition of the troops of the various military manors, Ming province's military forces were all recorded in the map. Such a thing was already a great weapon of war. If one carried this map north to Lihua, one would certainly be welcomed by the Blazing Flame Order. Perhaps they might even make an exception and allow one to join the order. As for rewards, there was no need to mention them. After all, this was related to the national defense of the empire's northern borders. For such an important matter, even if Miss Zhao was resourceful, with the Marquis of Jing'an's mansion's ability, it was impossible for them to obtain such a detailed military map. It was all thanks to Magistrate Liu, who was highly principled, that the map could be hung in the study of the Marquis of Jing'an's mansion. After all, apart from Ming Province's great general who had a copy of this map, the other copy would naturally be kept by the prefecture overseer. Sun Lang lifted his head and studied the map carefully. After a short while, he had a clear idea of the actual situation of the entire Ming province. He smiled and said, "You finally listened to me for once. Now you know that Old Harry is a big problem." After he finished speaking, he turned to look at Miss Zhao. "What do you think?" Miss Zhao had a thick stack of letters in her hands. She put one down and said with a smile, "More or less. As for this handwriting, especially for a great elite like General Qi and a great general, it's almost a reflection of the soul. As long as I can figure out his inner spirit, essence, and charm, and imitate his handwriting, I should be able to achieve both form and spirit." I didn't know this ability could be used like this. A faint purple light flashed in her eyes as she smiled mischievously. The letters in Miss Zhao's hands were also from Lu Zhou's contributions. There was a rule in the imperial court, and that was that the local civil officials had the authority to supervise the military. This was especially true for the prefecture overseer, who had the responsibility of balancing the authority of the military officials. They had the right to ask the Grand General about all military actions in their prefecture, and the Grand General of their prefecture had the obligation to proactively inform the prefecture overseer of any large-scale military movements. However, everyone knew that rules were rules, and implementation was implementation. Sun Lang had been personally appointed as the successor of socialism in his previous life. He had lived for more than 20 years, yet he had not seen the emperor announce that he would be abdicated to him. It was really baffling. Therefore, this rule, which was meant to support the civil officials and restrict the military power, was completely useless in the current situation. In the current dynasty, the civil officials were lowly and the military officials were nobles. Moreover, the current generation of military officials had earned their military exploits by slaughtering their way through Tianyuan battlefield. They were extremely arrogant and liked to stick together. The relationship between superiors and subordinates, as well as the camaraderie between fellow soldiers, had formed an iron network of relationships. Without an innate advantage, the civil officials could never shake this established trend, no matter how hard they tried. Under such circumstances, under the influence of the lowly civil officials and the military officials around them, there were never many generals who were willing to talk to the civil officials. Take the grand generals of the 9 provinces as an example. They were almost the top generals of the dynasty with the greatest military exploits, and they had military power in their hands and comrades in the imperial court. As long as they did not seek death, they were basically the evergreen trees of the empire. So, why would they take the prefecture overseers of their own provinces seriously? Those who were good-tempered would reach a tacit agreement with the prefecture overseers. They would mind their own business and mind their own business. If anyone dared to cross the line, they would be punished in the imperial court. However, General Qi, who was smooth and amiable, was an exception. In terms of military affairs and official affairs, he behaved like the most standard soldier and did everything according to the rules of the imperial court. In the military affairs of Ming province, no matter how big or small, as long as they met the standards set by the imperial court, the transfer documents and letters had to be copied and sent to the local government of Ming province as a backup. For some letters and documents that involved military secrets, he even took the trouble to copy them himself, in case they were seen by the officials and exposed to the risk of being leaked. He was indeed an excellent example of impartiality and conscientiousness, and he should be praised by the imperial court as a model. For example, he should be published in the court bulletin with the title of Serving the Public Wholeheartedly, Protecting the Country, and the Good General of the Imperial Court, Qi Guanyin. It was a pity that his painstaking efforts had all been taken advantage of by the rebels. Prefecture Overseer Lu Zhou was indeed a decisive person. Once he boarded the pirate ship, he would never turn back. He had even handed over the layout of the defenses. So what was the difference between a few documents and letters? Therefore, General Qi's conscientiousness fell into the hands of Lady Zhao, and they became important information for her to figure out the relationship between the generals in Ming province's military headquarters. She could even trace the generals' writing habits and style of giving orders from these copies. When the time came, as long as she copied them, it would not be too difficult even if she pretended to be Qi Guanyin and gave orders to the generals of Ming province. Lu Shoyan had already guessed part of Sun Lang's plan. He had placed a heavy bet on Sun Lang, betting that the former marshal would return after missing for 2 years. After all, with his prestige, wisdom, means, and former subordinates, he would return to the imperial court with a thunderous momentum, stir up a storm in Hutu, and make his voice heard in the empire, becoming a force that could influence the political scene. It should be noted that the current situation was in dire need of manpower. Now that he was in the middle of a chaotic and murderous situation, it was impossible for him to play it safe and remain neutral. So, if he did not make a decision quickly, when would he? If he did not make a contribution quickly, when a marshal raised a banner and announced to the world and summoned his former subordinates, where would he find his position? At the thought of this, Lord Lu went all the way. Without any pretense, he entered his current role and began to give Sun Lang advice, find out what he had missed, and make up for what he had missed. As for the secrets of the battle on Great Desolate Mountain, the purpose of Sun Lang's reappearance, and the motive of his return to the imperial court, Lord Lu did not need to worry about that. In any case, looking at Hu Shouxin, the matter of Tai Jia entering Mingzhou showed that the marshal was a nostalgic person. Right now, there was only one Hu Shouxin. In the future, When this matter was made public and his former subordinates reunited, there would be no old friends, confidants, loyal servants, close friends, brothers, and relatives. With so many acquaintances gathered around him, no matter how murderous the marshal was, he would not do anything crazy. As long as he did not fall into the devil's path and commit suicide, it would not be a big deal even if he maneuvered unhindered in the imperial court and overturned the capital. As for loyalty and righteousness, what a joke. In the history of the Qing dynasty, if there was an emperor who had a balanced mind, there would naturally be powerful officials who wielded swords to slay dragons. If the emperor was strong, the officials would be weak, and if the officials were weak, the emperor would be strong. It was just a matter of who led the dynasty and generation. As an official, he had to judge the situation and distinguish between the country and the world. He could not be blindly loyal like Qi Guanyin, who did not know how to adapt to the situation. TSK, to think that he is a scholar. Sure enough, he is still a vulgar warrior in essence, stubborn and inflexible. You must know that we scholars have received the teachings of the sages. Our hearts are filled with great loyalty to the country and the common people. How can we be pedantic to such an extent? After criticizing his former comrade in his heart, he immediately threw himself into the tense and exciting life of a dog-headed military advisor. He cupped his hands and said, "Young master, I have something to say," Sun Lang said gently. "I will listen quietly." It's just a joke. Don't mind it." Lu Shoyan had begun to get used to the occasionally confusing words that came out of the marshal's mouth. He classified such behavior into the category of strange words and strange deeds, but it went in one ear and out the other. He apologized and continued. The marshal asked for the map of Mingzhou's defense and General Qi's letter. "Do you want to use the general's order to give orders and mobilize the garrison in Mingzhou?" Sun Lang nodded with a smile. "Yes. Forgive me for being blunt, but I'm afraid it's not that simple," Lu Shoyan said cautiously. "First of all, even if Miss Zhao is talented and can imitate Qi Guanyin's handwriting and tone exactly, we still have two fatal problems that we can't solve," he sighed. "First of all, we don't have Qi Guanyin's seal of the general. It's not appropriate to forge Qi Guanyin's private letter to give orders to the proud soldiers of Mingzhou through my cooperation and Qi Guanyin's accumulated prestige. Besides, we have a second problem." Lu Shoyan glanced at Zhao Feihuang. "If the generals of the mansions notice something wrong and send people to visit the general to confirm it in person, what can we do?" Sun Lang and Zhao Feihuang looked at each other and laughed. Sun Lang walked over and patted Lu Shoyan's shoulder. "You only know one thing, but you don't know the other. Miss Zhao isn't the general of Mingzhou after all. Even if I fill in the gaps, more or less, there will be mistakes, and it can't be done flawlessly. But so what? My intention isn't to bypass Qi Guanyin and take over Mingzhou by force. Things haven't reached that stage yet. Otherwise, I wouldn't have wasted so much time with Qi Guanyin." Lu Shoyan's heart skipped a beat. He did not want to bypass Qi Guanyin and take over Mingzhou by force. If that was the case, it was easy to guess what he wanted to do. He muttered to himself for a moment before his eyes lit up. "I see." Lu Zhou smiled and said, "You have an ulterior motive. I'm afraid the marshal's target is the Wang clan, right? You want the Wang clan to realize this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, so they'll jump out on their own?" Sun Lang nodded and said, "That's right. The enemy is in the dark while we're out in the open. They're flying around like two flies. Although we can easily kill them, we have to be able to find them first. Since they're buzzing around in places we can't see, we'll put out a pile of SH*T and let them land on it." What an interesting analogy. The marshal was truly unfathomable and unfathomable. Lu Shoyan continued to observe the essence of the marshal's thoughts as though nothing had happened. He nodded and said, "That's a good idea. After all, General Qi is too shy to publicize his family scandal. I'm afraid neither the great general's mansion nor the soldiers of Mingzhou are aware of the Wang clan's betrayal. They still regard her as their mistress." The various anecdotes between the Wang clan and General Qi have been widely circulated in the army, causing the general's wife to be highly respected in Mingzhou's army. He pondered for a moment before he continued. The Wang clan has been ordered by Tensei province to stir up chaos in Mingzhou. Whether Qi Guanyin is under house arrest or killed by us, it's a good opportunity for her to fan the flames. When the generals see the clues, she'll raise her arms and call for help. She'll definitely be able to incite the generals to attack Mingzhou. Young Mistress Zhao smiled and said, then General Qi will only need to show his face on the city wall, and the army will instantly change sides. It won't be a problem to capture the Wang clan. Moreover, as long as she takes the initiative to contact the generals, she'll definitely leave behind traces and clues. She'll then come out in the open. At that time, it'll be 100 times easier for Sun Lang to find her. Master Lu nodded with a smile. He cupped his fists and said, Marshal, you're truly a genius. Sun Lang waved his hand and said, don't flatter me. This is just a fantasy. It's not easy to execute. We still need to think about how to make the Wang clan lower their guard and take the bait. Young Mistress Zhao had always been suspicious. Other than Sun Lang and Su Qingwan, there was probably no one else in the world that she could trust without thinking. She frowned and said, also, our relationship with General Qi is very strained now. Will he be willing to cooperate when the time comes? When the soldiers are at the city wall, even if he's still in our hands, the initiative will still be in his hands. Sun Lang said lightly, it doesn't matter. If Qi Guanyin doesn't know what's good for him, it doesn't matter. Almost all the elite soldiers in Mingzhou have gathered in Mingzhou, which is convenient for us. If Qi Guanyin can be ruthless, then I'll be even more ruthless than him. I hope he won't regret it. Young Mistress Zhao nodded. Since Sun Lang has a way, it can't be better. Huh? What way? Master Lu, on the other hand, was puzzled. The Qiu clan soldiers were certain that the great general had been murdered. They had arrived at the city wall with great ferocity. However, Qi Guanyin had suddenly betrayed them and ordered the army to attack the city. How was the marshal going to turn the tables in such a predicament? He could not possibly kill the 100,000-strong soldiers, could he? Sun Lang knew what Master Lu was thinking when he saw the look in Master Lu's eyes. He rolled his eyes and said, what are you thinking? Why would I do something like that? There are at least 100,000 of them. It'll be too late by the time I'm done killing them. You speak as if you've done it before. Wait. Lu Shoyin looked away as though nothing had happened. It's the Sky Demon's doing. It's the Sky Demon's doing. It's the Sky Demon's doing. It must be the Sky Demon's doing. Sun Lang saw Lu Shoyin's stunned expression, but he did not point it out. He smiled at young Mistress Zhao. Young Mistress Zhao had already guessed Sun Lang's backup plan. She narrowed her eyes and smiled. Actually, we don't have to wait until Qi Guanyin betrays us. We can do it now. Sun Lang shook his head. This is only a backup plan. I don't really like it. Young Mistress Zhao nodded obediently. Oh, there's no need for that for now. The two of them smiled at each other. Sun Lang walked over and stood behind young Mistress Zhao. Let's start writing the letter. We'll make a list first. However, speaking of the great general's seal, should I look for it in Huqin? Chapter 480. Early in the morning, in a manor in the mountains to the south of Hansheng, Wang Shi wrapped her hair with a handkerchief, rolled up her sleeves, and took a bucket of water to wash up. This was a property that she had purchased in private. There were no servants or maids, and there would be people who would clean it every half a month. There was a large amount of food, water, medicine, and money stored inside. Even Qi Guanyin did not know about this place. Over the years, she had placed many pieces on the chessboard that was Mingzhou, also that she could use them one day in case she needed them. The door of the room was pushed open. Wang Yin yawned and stumbled out. He complained, Sister, the bed is too hard. There's no incense. I didn't sleep well last night. Wang Shi looked at him and sighed. Brother, just bear with it for a few days. Wang Yin nodded his head in confusion. His mind was a mess, and he still couldn't understand what had happened in the past 2 days. After all, the recent changes were too thrilling for a hedonistic young master like him. He looked around. It was empty. Deep in the mountains and forests, it was quiet and deep. There was not the slightest bit of smoke or fire. It was completely different from a bustling city. For a young man of his age, he could not feel the elegant beauty of being out of the world. Young people always yearn for a more prosperous world. Therefore, the servant curled his lips and muttered, "Sister, what happened that night? What is the background of the steel giant that took us away? You seem to know it? Does brother-in-law know that we are here? Won't he be worried?" When Wang Shi heard this, her eyes suddenly turned red and tears rolled down her cheeks. Wang Yin saw this and immediately panicked. In his impression, his sister, who was smart and capable and doted on him, had never shown such an expression. The general's wife, who was in charge of the general's residence and had trained his brother-in-law to be obedient, seemed to be born with no fate with weakness. Therefore, when he saw his sister crying, he was shocked. He quickly squatted down and said anxiously, "Sister, what's wrong? What happened? Don't cry." Wang Shi wiped her tears. Before she could say anything, the roar of a jet engine came from the valley. The huge blazing angel was like a bolt of lightning across the sky, bringing with it a unique beauty of a mixture of holiness and violence. Wang Yin was shocked and immediately stood in front of his sister. What do you want? Your brother is not completely useless." The blazing angel's hoarse voice sounded. "It seems that the relationship between sister and brother is very good. It has nothing to do with you." Wang Shi shook off the water droplets on her hand and stood up calmly. "Brother, go rest in the room first." Wang Yin looked at the blazing angel that was exuding unparalleled dominance and pressure just by standing there, and then looked at his sister. He still didn't understand why the two of them were related. Although he couldn't make sense of what had happened in the past 2 days, he could still vaguely feel a great unease. It was as if something huge had happened while he was unconscious. He turned his head and looked deeply into his sister's eyes. "Sis, are you hiding something from me?" Hearing this, Blazing Angel laughed and said, "You haven't told him yet. Is it difficult?" "Shut up." Wang Ying scolded with a frosty face. Then she looked at Wang Yin and said slowly, "Brother, even if you know about this, it won't be of any help. It will only disturb people's hearts." Wang Yin was silent for a moment and sighed. "You're right. I'm just an idiot. If it wasn't for sister and brother-in-law's protection, I would just be a useless playboy. I wouldn't be able to help sister. His life could be said to be smooth sailing. He had never suffered any hardships. His family was originally well off. When he was a little more sensible, his brother-in-law made a fortune. As the brother-in-law of a famous general, almost everyone had to give him some face. This made him arrogant and conceited. Who would have thought that a few days ago he would be slapped in the face by Sun Lang? The difference in strength between the two sides was so great that he completely ignored the advantages that his family background brought to him. He was deeply shocked and now began to doubt society and life. This matter was very good to temper his temper. Usually, Wang Shi would be wild with joy, but now she could only sigh softly. Wang Ying glanced at the blazing angel again before slowly strolling back to his room. The blazing angel said indifferently, "How long are you going to keep this a secret from him?" Wang Shi said calmly, "This matter has nothing to do with him in the first place. When the time is right, I'll send him away from Mingzhou and return to his hometown. I only hope that he can temper his temper and calm down." "Are you kidding me? You're so close to your brother. If he leaves, where am I going to find a hostage?" The blazing angel chuckled coldly and did not expose her. She only said, "Qi Guanyin has already taken action. That Sun Lang has already tied the governor of Mingzhou and the general of Mingzhou to his chariot. Right now, more people have been sent to every checkpoint in Mingzhou. The civil and military of Mingzhou have worked together to set up an inescapable net and put out an arrest warrant for the two of you. Even if you want to send your brother away, it won't be that easy." Wang Ying's body suddenly trembled. She said in disbelief, "Arrest warrant? Fu!" Qi Guanyin announced this matter. Did he really send out an arrest warrant to capture us? The blazing angel said indifferently. He didn't mention any names. He's just looking for noble young masters with extraordinary temperaments and charming young women. Qi Guanyin is someone who cares about his face too. He didn't want to announce this matter. Only then did Wang Shi breathe a sigh of relief. She fell silent. "This isn't good news," said the blazing angel. "I don't know where that Sun Lang has come from, but he actually has the ability to pull Qi Guanyin and the governor of Mingzhou into the same boat. This isn't good news for us. After all, our mission is to stir up chaos in Mingzhou." After saying that, she asked, "Do you have any good ideas?" "If that's the case, the account books that recorded the many shady matters of the general's residence won't be of much use anymore. You plan to give them to the governor of Mingzhou, Lu Shouyin, and use his great dissatisfaction with Qi Guanyin to stir up a conflict between the two of them and even cause chaos in Mingzhou. Now, Lu Shouyin and Qi Guanyin are already wearing the same pants." Wang Shi raised her head abruptly and said, "Wait." The blazing angel was puzzled. "What's wrong?" Wang Ying's eyes flashed. "What did you just say?" "I said, Lu Shouyin and Qi Guanyin are already wearing the same pants." The blazing angel was puzzled. "What?" Wang Shi's eyes flashed. That's it. The blazing angel was confused. "What did you say?" Wang Ying ignored it. The woman paced back and forth, muttering to herself. She frowned and fell into deep thought. Her eyes grew brighter and brighter, but her fingers kept trembling. In the end, she stopped and took a deep breath. Her face was somewhat pale. The blazing angel was somewhat impatient. "What's wrong with you?" "I've discovered the problem." Wang Shi hesitated for a moment, then said, "I want you to do something to confirm my guess." The blazing angel was dissatisfied. "Woman, why are you hemming and hawing? What do you want me to do?" "When I went out to investigate, I sensed the signals of the death messenger and the lone traveler. These two fellows are looking for me in Manchuria. If I'm discovered, even I don't have the confidence to say that I can win against the two of them at once. Moreover, they have an even more powerful person behind them. If I'm delayed for a while and wait for Sun Lang to arrive, I'll most likely die here." At this point, there was a trace of confusion in its hoarse voice. "Speaking of which, what kind of deity is that Sun Lang? Not only does Lu Shouyin listen to him, even these two blazing angels are willing to listen to him and become his hired thugs. This death messenger is a barbaric woman who listens to whoever has the biggest fist. That's fine, but why is the lone traveler so unprincipled? After all, he's... Wang Shi's eyes flashed. "At what?" The blazing angel's tone was playful. "I suddenly thought of a very good idea." It pondered for a moment and seemed to have an idea. However, it did not want to tell Wang Shi, so it changed the topic. "What do you want me to do?" Wang Shi knew that this so-called colleague of hers had many reservations about her. She only snorted and squatted down. She dipped the water in the bucket and began to smear it on the ground. "We're near Huqing. It's the most dangerous place, but it's also the safest place. I know the distribution of the troops in Manchuria and the temperament of the generals. I want you to go to one of the military residences and steal a letter." The blazing angel thought for a moment and said, "It's not easy to go against the military residences in broad daylight." Wang Shi said, "I've said it before. I know the temperament of the generals and even their weaknesses. Otherwise, do you think I've been the housekeeper of the general's residence all these years for nothing? There's no need to force it. I'll give you a clear path. The Lord of Guiyun Manor, by phone, is capable, but he's greedy and lustful. I have something on him. I'll write a letter here. When you reach Guiyun Manor, all you need to do is..." The blazing angel mocked. "How can I send a letter in this state?" Wang Shi said indifferently, "Can't you take off your armor? If not, I'll go myself." The blazing angel hesitated for a moment and snorted, "No need. I'll go. I hope it won't be a waste of time. If you still can't make up for it, I'll have to report to the master that you've failed in your duty." It did not waste time. It activated the jet and shot into the sky. The blazing angel changed shape in the air and shot into the distance, leaving a huge echo in the valley. Wang Shi looked in the direction it left in and stood silently. She clenched her fists so tightly that her nails dug into her flesh. 2 streams of tears fell from her face. The door was pushed open silently, revealing Wang Yin's complicated expression. He looked at his sister, as if it was the first time he had met her. He said slowly, "Sister, you and brother-in-law." Wang Ying trembled and whispered, "Don't say it. You don't understand." "Yes, I don't understand." Wang Ying clenched his fists and said in a low voice, "Did brother-in-law do anything to let you down?" Wang Shi sighed. "No, he treats me very well. There's no one better than him." Wang Ying said indifferently, "Then what are you doing now?" Wang Ying said calmly, "I have no choice. I can only do this. I'm sorry, brother. Sister is very good to me. When I got into trouble, you covered it up for me. When I made brother-in-law unhappy, you interceded for me. Mother left early. Sister is like a mother. You gave me everything that mother didn't have time to give me." Wang Ying closed his eyes and sighed. How can such a sister let me down? Wang Shi still had her back to her brother. Her face was getting paler and paler. There was a trace of pleading in her voice. "Brother, don't say it. This has nothing to do with you. After a while, when things calm down, I'll send you home. In the future, you have to be a good and down-to-earth person. How can this have nothing to do with me? You're my sister." Wang Yin's suppressed emotions exploded. He didn't know what was going on, but it didn't stop him from expressing his opinion. He took 2 steps forward and said loudly, "Sis, an elder sister is like a mother, and you're like a mother. When I did something wrong when I was young, you would cover it up for me, and then you would always teach me that it was wrong. Since I was young, I have also been taught by you that this is wrong, that is wrong." He looked at his sister's back and took a deep breath. He temporarily put aside his respect and love for his sister and said loudly, "But this time, this useless brother of mine wants to tell sister that what you're doing is wrong. If brother-in-law did something to let you down, I'll beat him up for you. But since brother-in-law didn't do anything to let you down, how can you do this?" Wang Shi's body trembled. She whispered, "Don't say it. I want to say it. Sister, do you have any difficulties? We're a family. Misunderstandings can always be solved. Brother-in-law loves you so much. If you have any problems or difficulties, just tell him. Won't he solve them for you? Brother-in-law once said that nothing is difficult in this world. Why do we have to be like this when we're clearly a family? Don't say it." Wang Shi turned around and pointed at Wang Yin. Wang Yin's body trembled and slowly fell to the ground. Wang Yin caught her brother and caressed his familiar face. She closed her eyes and said softly, "You don't understand. Brother, when you know the truth, don't blame me." Who asked? She didn't continue. She carried her brother into the room and placed him on the bed. She pulled the blanket over him and tucked him in. Then, she sat by the bed and stared at her brother's face. It was as if she wanted to engrave his appearance deep in her heart. She softly hummed a song. After an unknown period of time, the long-awaited sound of jets came from outside. Blazing Angel had returned. Wang Ying took the document sealed in a craft paper bag from the other party's hand. She opened it and carefully read it a few times. Her fingers trembled slightly and her eyes flickered. In the end, she closed her eyes and sighed. "It's not him." Chapter 481. "It's not him." Hearing that, the seraph asked in confusion, "It's not who?" Wang Shi was silent for a moment. She had already sorted out her emotions. Shaking the letter in her hand, she said lightly, "The person who wrote the letters to the generals and mobilized the troops in Mingzhou was not Qi Guanyin." This was far beyond the seraph's expectations. It asked in shock, "What? You once said that Qi Guanyin was wearing the same pants as Lu Shoyan." Wang Shi said lightly, "This gave me a hint. This is a taboo among officials. Qi Guanyin should know that. Besides, Lu Shoyan was troubled by the matter of Xianjia entering Mingzhou. Now, it seems that he has joined Sun Lang. He must have received some kind of political promise in exchange. It seems that Sun Lang must be a person with great power in the north. That is why he appeared here. In other words," she explained a little, then shook her head and said, "Forget it. This matter is too complicated and troublesome to explain. You only need to know that with Qi Guanyin's character, he shouldn't be in cahoots with the northern faction. I had my suspicions. That's why I asked you to snatch a letter and bring it over. It's clear whether it was written by him or not. Although the blazing angel was a little confused, his attention was no longer on it, because Wang Shi's words revealed some important information. It took a deep breath and asked, "Are you sure? It can't be wrong." Wang Ying said, "Sun Lang has an expert on his side. Be it the charm of the handwriting, the choice of words, or the habit of giving orders, everything was copied almost flawlessly. No wonder he could fool Qi Guanyan's generals. Unfortunately, a fake is a fake. There will always be flaws." She paused for a moment and smiled bitterly. No matter how real a letter is, it can fool others, but it can't fool his wife. Ha, ha. The former general's wife stroked the letter in her hand and let out a complicated laugh. Her slender fingers trembled slightly. No one knew what she was thinking. The seraph, on the other hand, thought of something that excited it. It's fake? But Qi Guanyin clearly went to Mingzhou with Sun Lang. How could the letter be fake? There was a hint of unconcealable tremor in its hoarse voice because it suddenly realized that its master's task seemed to have taken a turn for the better. After all, Wang Shi came first, and Sun Lang came out of nowhere, adding a lot of variables to the task. Sun Lang was able to pull the two leaders of Mingzhou's officialdom onto his chariot, in disguise, to unify the power of Mingzhou. This was a great threat to its master's plan. If it did not solve this problem, it would be a great dereliction of its duty and its master, and would make its masters furious. But now he suddenly realized that this big problem had actually taken a turn for the better. Qi Guanyin didn't seem to be in cahoots with Sun Lang. Thinking of this, its voice trembled a little. "What about Qi Guanyin?" Wang Shi lowered her eyes and said softly, "Since this fake letter was openly sent out, there are only three possibilities. First, Qi Guanyin and Sun Lang didn't come to an agreement, but for various reasons, he chose to remain neutral and turned a blind eye to Sun Lang's actions. This shouldn't be possible. It doesn't fit his personality. As long as he chooses a path, he will walk it to the end. He will never waver." There was a hint of joy in the seraph's voice. And then, Wang Shi's voice was flat as she said indifferently, "The second possibility is that the two of them didn't come to an agreement. They didn't see eye to eye and quarreled. Qi Guanyin wasn't Sun Lang's opponent, so he was injured and put under house arrest. Then, Sun Lang went all the way and used Qi Guanyin's name to command the army and gather the power of Mingzhou to find us and kill us. This created an established fact that forced Qi Guanyin to join them. Then, what's the third possibility?" "The third one," Wang Ying blinked and said softly, "Similarly, it didn't come to an agreement and there was a conflict. But perhaps Qi Guanyin was injured, or perhaps Sun Lang didn't stop. As a result, he died." The seraph was refreshed and asked directly, "What are the possibilities?" Wang Ying looked at him as if nothing had happened and said calmly, "I can't tell. Theoretically speaking, the possibility isn't high, because Sun Lang can't bear the consequences of killing Qi Guanyin." The seraph said impatiently, "Didn't you say that there was a possibility of failure? The place where the two of them fought might be Sun Lang's nest. If Qi Guanyin mobilized the imperial army, it might hurt other people. In order to protect his family, Sun Lang attacked too heavily and killed Qi Guanyin. This is also possible." Wang Shi bit her lips. "I don't know." "Then think of a way to verify it." The seraph said, "This is a rare piece of good news for us. If Qi Guanyin was really killed by Sun Lang by accident, it will be the blessing of the Earth Queen. Even if he was lucky, just the fact that he was under house arrest is enough for Sun Lang to suffer." He stared at Wang Ying meaningfully, and the red light on the mask flickered. "Now that things have come to this, don't change your mind at the last minute. You can't let go of such a good opportunity. Whether or not you can redeem yourself and receive the master's praise and reward depends on you." Wang Shi stood where she was, holding the forged letter tightly in her hand and not saying a word. The seraph said casually, "Don't forget that night when Qi Guanyin stabbed you with his halberd. If it weren't for Sun Lang stopping him, you would have been killed on the spot, even if you had 8 lives. The so-called relationship between husband and wife has already been destroyed by that halberd. Your husband has already divorced you. Now, even if you don't plan for yourself, you should plan for your real family, right? Wang Ying heard this, and her body trembled. She slowly turned her head and looked deeply at the side room behind her. Brother, I hope that when you know the truth, you won't hate me. She turned her head back, and an expression of anger and unwillingness appeared on her face. But slowly, this expression slowly converged into indifference. She took a deep breath and said casually, I know. It's good that you know. The seraph seemed like he didn't want to make things too awkward with her, so he said to make up for it. Your brother, in terms of talent, is just a bag of straw. Without Qi Guanyan's protection, he will definitely be muddle-headed and mediocre. He won't have any great prospects. If you want him to be outstanding in the future, I don't need to say what the only chance is. With the master's power, giving him a small, wealthy future is naturally a small matter. Wang Shi snorted coldly, as if she didn't want to be entangled in this matter. She shook the letter in her hand and said, This letter is forged. It means that Qi Guanyin is not in a good situation now. For us, it is indeed a very, very good opportunity. She paced 2 steps on the spot and muttered, Qi Guanyin doesn't want to spread his family's dirty linen, so almost no one knows about me. Even if there are a few people who know, they all think that I was taken away by a traitor. In their hearts, I am not only a victim, but also a highly respected general's wife. The traitor who took her away didn't know if Wang Shi was deliberately scolding him, so he just snorted. Wang Shi continued, If it was a normal time, it would be fine. Qi Guanyin is very strict with the army. As a woman, I don't have a military position and can't command them at all. But it's different this time. The general has mysteriously disappeared. It seems that he has been put under house arrest or even murdered. The army is like a group of dragons without a leader. If I call out as the general's wife, there will definitely be a response. Even if I don't have direct command, I can take advantage of the situation and use them to achieve my goal. The seraph also thought so. Seeing that Wang Shi was indeed working hard, it nodded repeatedly. This is a very good idea. The master's order is to stir up chaos in Mingzhou. What can shake the court more than the generals attacking Mingzhou in anger? The army is at the city gates, and there are hundreds of thousands of soldiers in Mingzhou. Under the eyes of the public, no matter how the situation is resolved, it will be a huge storm. Just this alone is enough to make Sun Lang and Qi Guanyin suffer. Wang Ying's expression did not change as she added, and this is only the beginning. We can totally do more things. For example, besides instigating the generals to attack Mingzhou, we can also instigate them to collectively submit a memorial to the court, saying that the generals of Tianyuan in the north, led by Sun Lang and Hu Shouxin, colluded with Lu Shouyin and imprisoned the general Qi Guanyin. In addition, the account books can also be sent into the capital. I guarantee that the court will be turned upside down. The seraph was dazed for a moment. Then it praised, Wonderful, wonderful. This is truly a brilliant idea. You don't have to waste your breath. Wang Shi said expressionlessly. I've said it before. The task of sending the account books to the Heavenly Policy Mansion must be done by my younger brother. Do you understand? Hearing that, the seraph was relieved. It was even less wary of Wang Shi. No matter how terrifying and vicious this person was, as long as she had a weakness, her threat would be greatly reduced. Therefore, it chuckled and said, No problem. If he sends the account books, he can also show his face in front of the master. As long as he leaves a good impression and makes the master happy, it will be of great use to him for the rest of his life. When the situation is settled, we will begin to arrange this matter. What do you think? However, although its tone was one of discussion and inquiry, there was no room for negotiation. Indeed, when the fact that Mingzhou was surrounded by the army was established, everything would be settled. It did not matter whether they had hostages or not. It was better to be generous so that this woman would not have to think too much. Wang Shi seemed to have thought of this as well. Her expression was somewhat ugly, but she was a smart woman. After understanding the cause and effect, she did not continue to pester it. Instead, she continued, But before we carry out the plan, we have to confirm 2 things. Were they? The seraph asked. First, Wang Shi flipped to the end of the letter. Although it is a military mobilization, there is no general seal here. Sun Lang and the others imitated Qi Guanyan's handwriting and tone, using his usual authority to give the order. Although the generals did not say it out loud, they will all have doubts in their hearts, the seraph said. Yes, they will definitely have doubts in their hearts. It will be easier for us to act. Qi Guanyan left in a hurry that night. He did not think of mobilizing the army, so he did not bring the general's seal. This is also our chance. A cold light flashed in Wang Ying's eyes. With the identity of the general's wife and the general's seal that the general secretly entrusted to us before he left, it will be more convincing. The seraph nodded. You are right. Do you know where the general's seal is? Wang Shi smiled with a complicated expression. I should know. Then we will take it, the seraph asked. Then what is the second matter? Wang Shi did not immediately reply. She stood in the courtyard and looked up at the sky. She sank into silence, as though she was in a dilemma. After a long time, she laughed mournfully and then clenched her fists. The hesitation in her eyes was replaced by coldness. She said indifferently, I said before that almost no one knows the truth between Qi Guanyan and I. Almost no one. She turned her head and looked at the seraph. The murderous intent in her eyes made the seraph, who was at the top of the seraph, shiver. Wang Ying said faintly, coincidentally, there is one person who knows the truth. In order to prevent the information from being leaked and the entire plan from falling short of success, we have to keep him silent forever. Marquis Jingganfu, your Grand General is slightly injured and is not convenient to receive guests. You can go back now. Sun Lang said to the soldiers in front of him. Go back and tell your commander to carefully carry out the orders that the Grand General gave. The leading officer was clearly someone who had seen the world and would not be sent away by just a few words. He cupped his hands in a manner that was neither servile nor overbearing. My commander has repeatedly instructed that we must pay a visit to the Grand General. If the Grand General is unwell, then this lowly officer will have to go to his bedside and kowtow to pay respects. I say, Qiu Ba, why do you have so many problems? Sun Lang picked his nose and said impatiently, I already said that your Grand General will naturally come out to preside over the situation after he recovers from his injuries. Hurry and leave. Hearing this, the officer was furious. He held the hilt of his sword and took a step forward. Traces of killing intent seeped out of his body. He threatened, You are being secretive. Could it be that you have a guilty conscience? What about you? Sun Lang rolled his eyes. His figure flashed, and he appeared in front of him. That officer was shocked and pulled out his sword to hack, but before he could move, Sun Lang grabbed his chest and threw him out. The other attendants also did the same, flying out like they were riding on clouds. The soldiers only felt a sharp pain on their bodies. Turning their heads to look around, they discovered that they had been directly thrown from the front hall onto the main street. They couldn't help but be greatly shocked. Looking at Sun Lang, who had appeared like a ghost, for a moment, they were both shocked and furious, but they couldn't utter a single vicious word. Sun Lang picked his nose and said arrogantly, You really have a lot of problems still being secretive. Laozi's martial arts are #1 in the world. Even if I killed your Grand General, I will admit it openly. If I say that he is fine, then he is fine. Hurry and go back to report. If you dare to stay here, I will throw you all into the cesspit. With that, he turned and went back. Those soldiers looked at each other. The leading officer gritted his teeth. Thinking of Sun Lang's skills, he still chose to cower. Let's go. Go back and report to the general. This is already the third wave. Sun Lang returned to the front hall. Miss Zhao walked out with a smile. I'm afraid that many of the smart generals are already muttering. Sun Lang smiled. This is the effect I want. Also, there is a pleasant surprise. Miss Zhao smiled. Yesterday, you asked me to look through Qi Guanyan's letters and specifically look for generals with great flaws in their personalities. You sent spies from the Marquis's mansion to observe them. This was a stupid method of casting a wide net, but I didn't expect it to actually work. I just received a pigeon letter saying that the Lord of Cloud Mansion, by phone, is acting strangely. Chapter 482. Guiyun Manor? Sun Lang's expression changed. He smiled and asked, "What is it?" Lady Zhao pursed her lips and smiled. The order given to Guiyun Manor's chief general, Bai Feng, was to send elite soldiers to seal off all the important places from Deshengguan to Yundapu, increase the intensity of inspection and patrol, and monitor the movements to the west of Guiyun Manor. Be prepared to mobilize the troops at any time. She raised a finger and shook it. Although that Bai Feng is greedy and lustful, he is still a qualified general. Otherwise, Qi Guanyin would not have allowed him to hold such an important position. This means that since the order has been given, he will carry it out wholeheartedly. He will not abandon his duty for personal reasons. Sun Lang nodded and asked, "Then where did he go?" Lady Zhao replied, "The messenger pigeon said that this morning, when the Marquis Manor spies were monitoring the Guiyun general's manor, they found someone sneaking in and passing in a letter. Not long after, Guiyun Manor's chief general, Bai Feng, disguised himself and left through the back door." Sun Lang's expression changed. "Where'd he go?" Lady Zhao looked apologetic. "I don't know. Bai Feng's martial arts are not weak, and he is a general. Moreover, it is obvious that he is working in secret. He must be very vigilant. Our men were afraid of alerting him, so they did not dare to act rashly. Therefore, they did not follow Bai Feng." Sun Lang was not disappointed. He nodded. "That's true. His judgment is correct. Your ability to train your subordinates is not bad. You're able to remain calm at crucial moments and not act rashly." "Very good." Zhao Fei Huang was delighted. He said proudly, "Of course. Sun Lang, you are right. Although our men did not choose to follow Bai Feng, it was not like they did not come out empty-handed. They followed the person who delivered the letter, and after confirming his identity, they captured him. As expected, the person who delivered the letter was just a hooligan on the streets of Guiyun Manor." Sun Lang thought for a moment and smiled. In other words, the person who came looking for Bai Feng should not be a local acquaintance of his in Guiyun Manor. For example, his lover or asshole friend. "Indeed." Young Mistress Zhao nodded and said they went through a preliminary interrogation and got all the information they could. That scoundrel said that the person who instructed him to deliver the letter to the Guiyun Manor was wearing a black cloak and had a hoarse voice. It was hard to tell if the person was a male or female. He was given 5 taels of silver and told to deliver a letter to General Bai Feng at the Guiyun Manor. He said that General Bai would reward him with silver after the matter was settled. Sun Lang shook his head and said, "He actually did something so suspicious. He was probably threatened or blinded by greed. After all, 5 taels of silver are nothing to us, but to these hooligans, it is enough for them to look for that half-closed door that they have been drooling over for a long time and enjoy the life of an emperor for a few days. Or perhaps they can go to a gambling den and enjoy the life of a rich man." Young Mistress Zhao said with a smile, "Everyone has desires. It is just that different people have different statuses, so the cost of their desires is different as well. Just like how hooligans on the streets do not want to be appointed as generals or ministers and leave their names in history, the officials of the imperial court have no interest in being the banker in front of a bunch of hooligans and gamblers. Different people have different desires. When dealing with people, you have to look at their dishes and understand what they really want. Only then can you handle it with ease." Sun Lang said with a smile, Good. You know a lot. You are amazing." Young Mistress Zhao said with a smile, "Of course. If I don't know a lot, how can I be of help to you?" Sun Lang smiled and changed the topic again. Since the person who came to look for Bai Feng is not a local, there are only 2 groups of people in the current situation. First, it is a foreign general who sensed that there is something wrong with the so-called Great General's orders and came to contact him. This is also not very likely. If it is really a general from another army, regardless of whether he sent someone or came personally, he would have an entourage. He would not come alone. Second, this person is hiding his head but showing his tail. His voice is hoarse, and he has specially come to look for someone like Bai Feng who has a stain on his character. Young Mistress Zhao continued, "It is most likely the Wang family and the Blazing Angels group." Sun Lang nodded and then sighed. It is a pity that messenger pigeons are too slow. If there is a more efficient method of transmitting information, then after we receive the news, we can immediately issue orders to Courier and Longwanda to intercept them immediately. I will set off at the same time. As long as the death messenger and the lone wanderer can delay the other party for a moment, that blazing angel will not be able to leave no matter what. It is too late now. Zhao Feihuang asked in surprise. A faster way of transmitting information? Sun Lang nodded and pondered. I talked to Courier about the Morse code a few days ago. I was just joking before, but now it seems that it is indeed necessary to make a telegram first. He thought about it and felt that the farming genre was also good, especially through the description of the foreign country bumpkins are shocked by the modernization and development of the protagonist's territory, which was a lot of fun to play with. To increase the word count openly without having to worry about being looked askance by the readers. Furthermore, it could also be more enjoyable and advance the plot. It was simply wonderful. Therefore, he said, well, Ming is about to become my territory anyway. According to the general law of the farming genre's plot development, it is natural to climb the technology tree bravely. When a matter here is over, I will send people abroad to bring back a batch of skilled immigrants. Humph. In any case, for those foreign devils, Hutu is the beacon of human civilization. As long as they show their green cards and promise a high salary, they will fly over even if the world is covered. Young Mistress Zhao was indeed a female Zhuge. Relying on her intelligence and her love for Sun Lang, she forced herself to understand more than half of her lover's words. When she understood the meaning, she could even tease him. When those foreign scholars step onto the land of the Empire with their admiration for the Celestial Empire and their yearning for a better life, I wonder what kind of expression they will have when they find out that the people who hired them are thieves who harbor ill intentions toward the Empire. What thieves? Sun Lang smiled proudly. They are called vassals. All right, my lord. Zhao Feihuang asked. It's definitely too late to go to the Cloud Gathering Mansion to stop the Seraph, but Bai Feng is still there. She can run away, but the temple can't. Do you want to go there? Sun Lang thought for a moment and shook his head. Forget it, in case we alert them. After all, it's easy to know what the Wang family and the Seraph are up to. Or rather, everything is under our control. Even if we capture Bai Feng and interrogate her, the answer we get will be exactly the same as our conjecture and plan. It will only increase the variables of the matter and raise the enemy's wariness. He paced a few steps and said casually, our plan is to make the general suspicious by forging Qi Guanyan's orders, so that the Wang family and the Seraph will see an opportunity to counterattack. Today they took the bait so easily. What a pleasant surprise. Their motive for meeting Bai Feng in private is obvious. It's probably to ask Bai Feng for the so-called letter of the great general's orders. Zhao Feihuang nodded and said, that's right. Although I can imitate the charm of Qi Guanyan's handwriting and the habit of using words and forming sentences, even if I can hide it from his generals, I can't hide it from his wife. Wang Shi must have already seen some clues from it. Haha, I'm afraid she would never have dreamed that all of this was Sun's plan. Sun Lang only smiled. Back then, he was an unparalleled general who led the 6 armies to fight against the Sky Demon. He was a powerful figure who fought against a group of extraterrestrial visitors who could sweep through an entire world. He did not feel any sense of accomplishment at all by taking care of a Hudong lion, so he did not feel any pride at all. He said, since this woman has gotten into the act ahead of time, let's add some icing on the cake and add some fuel to the fire. Write another letter and ask the generals of Mingzhou to come to Mingzhou in 3 days. Tell them that the great general wants to talk to them in person and explain some of the recent events. Zhao Feihuang immediately understood Sun Lang's intention. He clapped his hands and said with a smile, the Wang family must have seen the opportunity. In the past 2 days, she should have started to collude with the generals to accuse us of putting the great general under house arrest and instigate the Qiu family to lead the troops to besiege Mingzhou to save the great general. The generals were already suspicious, and with the madam's personal explanation, they probably believed 70% of it. When they read this letter, they probably believed 90% of it. How would they be willing to come? Even if they did come, they would have to gather the troops before coming. Sun Lang smiled. Then it's our turn to perform. Miss Zhao nodded and was about to write a letter when a thought flashed through her mind. Wait, Sun Lang asked curiously, what is it? Zhao, Fei Huang asked. I suddenly thought of something. Since we've already guessed that the Wang family has already colluded with the generals, she will most likely return to the great general's residence. If that's the case, why should we wait for her to make a move? Sun Lang, you could go to Hongcheng and capture her directly. Sun Lang shook his head. The Wang family is not stupid. She's smart and knows her advantages and disadvantages. Her advantage is that she can use her identity as the great general's wife to take advantage of the situation and use the strength of the Mingzhou army to deal with us. Her disadvantage is that her personal safety is not worth mentioning in front of our military force. Therefore, the first thing she has to be on guard against is our decapitation operation. Therefore, the possibility of her swaggering back to the great general's residence is not high. She must have first colluded with the generals of Mingzhou in a secret location before standing out to raise her arms and call for action. When the time comes, she will be surrounded and protected by many powerful generals and the Mingzhou army. Only then will she feel a sense of security. Sun Lang smiled and said, although it won't be too difficult to capture her even with the protection of the army, it will be hard to avoid a fight with those bandits. I'm already tired of gang fights, not to mention this kind of random gang fight. It's so annoying. Besides, Qi Guanyin, that pretentious B*TCH, is unwilling to do anything. If I directly capture his wife, I'm afraid he'll be a B*TCH again. I have to let him see the danger of the enemy at the gate and the vicious heart of a woman. Only then will he know what it means to have his eyebrows on fire. Sun Lang snorted disdainfully. I think his brain has been blown silly by the spring breeze of reform. Zhao Feihuang smiled. All right, go write the letter, Sun Lang said. Then he suddenly thought of a small matter. By the way, has the letter been delivered? Is it a letter addressed to the old housekeeper of the great general's residence, Qi Chong? Zhao Feihuang replied. The person who was sent to deliver the letter has returned. He said that the old housekeeper was very polite to him and did not make things difficult or interrogate him. He also asked him to come back and report that he was indebted to Qi Chong. He already knows and will definitely comply. She blinked. What's wrong? Sun Lang nodded. It's fine as long as it's delivered. That old man has some brains and seems to have guessed that Madame Wang has betrayed him. If he hears the news and wants to do something, I'm afraid he'll be killed. I think he's very close to Qi Guanyin. If he dies because of this, Qi Guanyin will definitely hold a grudge. So, I might as well do him a favor at little cost, so that Qi Guanyin will also be grateful to me. A smile appeared on his face, as if he was thinking of the conversation he had with Qi Guanyin the day before. There was no sense of accomplishment in scheming against a mere Wang family, but it was very interesting to press on step by step and throw a major general of a province into a state of confusion. Given that Master Sun would soon roar in the Golden Palace and dominate the capital, it was also a good thing to use the great general of Mingzhou as a rehearsal. So, after writing the letter, I asked Qi Guanyin to add a secret code that only he and Uncle Chong could understand so that I can win his trust. The reason why I didn't let Qi Guanyin write the letter himself was that I was afraid that he would leave a hint and ruin my plan. Sun Lang smiled and said, in this way, that old man should believe it. Now he has probably arranged an excuse to get away and then ran away. Send the person who delivered the letter to Qi Guanyin so that the great general can rest assured. Now that the letter has been delivered, unless that old man wants to die, his life is definitely safe. At night, after going through so many incidents, the Huqing garrison had already reached the point where they were flustered and exasperated. Huge cases happened one after another right under their noses. This was practically the most insane provocation to the soldiers of the empire. Even without the scolding and punishment from their superiors, this group of soldiers was already fuming in their hearts. However, even though the intensity of the patrols had increased by several times compared to usual, and the soldiers were also holding back their energy, they couldn't wait for the thieves to jump out so that they could immediately raise their swords and chop them into minced meat. But it was still useless. In the darkness, Madame Wang and the Seraph King appeared in a residential building. I've been in charge of the general's residence for many years. It is even safe to say that I am the real master of this city. I know multiple secret tunnels that even Qi Guanyin doesn't know about, Madame Wang said casually. Wang Shi said leisurely, "What surprised me was that you were able to squeeze into spite being so big. The blazing angel battle armor is ever-changing. Your secret passage isn't that narrow." After a soft hum, the seraph armor returned to the magnificent human form. "Cut the crap. Go and find the seal of the great general." By the way, complicated feelings were beaming out of Madame Wang's eyes in the darkness. "By the way, kill him." Chapter 483. It was another night, a good time to commit murder and arson. Wang Shi had already changed into a capable and experienced outfit. She held 2 short swords, loaded a sleeve arrow, and hid a water-parting brow thorn. Fully armed, she led the blazing angel and quietly moved forward in the night. Because of the major events that had happened in the past few days, Huqing had implemented the strictest curfew. The soldiers patrolling the city had increased greatly. Just at night, there were no pedestrians on the streets. Under such circumstances, the difficulty of sneaking in had increased exponentially. If Wang Shi was not a local snake among local snakes, it would have been difficult for her to move forward. But even so, it was not easy to bring Blazing Angel with such a large target through the patrolling soldiers of the city. Fortunately, Blazing Angel was equipped with the most advanced war technology of the Lihua Kingdom. Its ability to detect the enemy was not inferior to the spiritual sense of a peerless expert. It could often discover the patrolling soldiers in advance and avoid them in advance. Finally, it entered another tunnel entrance without any danger. Changing form and entering the tunnel again, Blazing Angel did not forget to complain. "Why is it so troublesome? Can't you just build a tunnel that leads directly to the general's residence?" Wang Shi lit a torch and led the way in front. Hearing this, she mocked, "Build all the tunnels so that they are connected in all directions, and then be discovered and uprooted in the end?" Blazing Angel was reprimanded and snorted resentfully. The 2 of them fell silent again and continued to move forward in the long and narrow tunnel. After about a quarter of an hour, Wang Shi said, "Get ready. We're almost there." Blazing Angel asked, "Where?" Wang Shi was silent for a moment, then said faintly, "Qi Guanyin's study, where the seal is hidden." Blazing Angel was slightly surprised at first, then said, "Got it." Wang Ying whispered, "You remember the arrangements I told you before, right?" Blazing Angel replied, "Yes." The woman laughed bitterly. Her smile was full of bitterness and mockery. It was unknown what she was sighing about. Blazing Angel seemed to have guessed what she was thinking. Perhaps because there was hope for victory, this killing machine became more patient and comforted her. "Don't worry. If the old doesn't go, the new won't come." "I hope so," Wang Shi said. "Be careful. Stay here and keep watch." After turning a corner, they reached the end of the road. Wang Shi walked forward and placed her hand on the second-to-last candlestick on her left. She turned on the hidden mechanism. The stone slab moved away silently, revealing a dark exit. Wang Shi gestured for Seraph to stay down there for the time being. Then, she walked out step by step vigilantly with her daggers in hand. What entered his eyes was the study where Qi Guanyin usually worked and dealt with military affairs. However, the general who used to burn the midnight oil in this room was no longer there. It was quiet and deserted, and there was no light. It was dark all around. Like a cat, Wang Shi walked out of the room without a sound. It was dark all around. Even with her eyesight, she couldn't see everything clearly. But even so, she felt like she was taking a stroll in the dark. because everything around her was so familiar to her. Even if she closed her eyes and walked around, she wouldn't bump into anything. Because in the past, for thousands of days and nights, she had been here, lighting the candles, serving ginseng tea, and fanning her husband's side profile under the candlelight, looking even more heroic. He was a hero with his family and country in his heart, but she was his wife with only one person in her heart. How many times did they hold hands and look at each other? How many times did they look back at each other? How many times did they smile? All of this could no longer be reversed. She walked silently in the dark, thinking of the past. She sighed in her heart, as if it was a lifetime ago. For a moment, she seemed to be obsessed and fell in her memories. Suddenly, in the dark, a soft sigh sounded. Madam has indeed come back. When this sound fell into Wang Shi's ears, it was as if thunder had exploded. It made her suddenly wake up from her beautiful dream and put on a defensive posture. Then, in the dark, she lit the candle by her hand. The candlelight lit up the study and the face of the old man sitting by the candlelight. It was the loyal housekeeper who had served the Chi family for 2 generations, Uncle Chong, who was regarded as an elder by the general. The old housekeeper was old and had profound internal energy. He was better than Wang Shi. He waited in the dark, calm and focused. With the support of his strong internal energy, he breathed in and out very softly. In addition, Wang Shi was revisiting the old place and was filled with emotions. She didn't notice that Uncle Chong was beside her. Now that Uncle Chong took the initiative to speak, Wang Shi was frightened and broke out in a cold sweat. She held 2 short swords and stood as if she was facing a great enemy. She looked at the old housekeeper with a complicated expression and sighed. "You still call me madam? I'm old and nostalgic." Uncle Chong sighed. "I can't change the way I address you." Wang Shi smiled bitterly and shook her head. "It's the middle of the night. Uncle Chong is old, so why aren't you sleeping early? Why are you waiting in this cold and cheerless study and giving me a fright?" Uncle Chong looked at the woman in front of him and said calmly, "Because this old servant calculated that madam would most likely come back. I didn't dare to delay, so I waited here." However, what surprised this old servant was that madam didn't descend from the sky, but came out of the ground. When did a tunnel appear under the general's study? It's really strange. Wang Shi didn't answer this question. Instead, she sighed. "That's right. I came back to take the general's seal." "Uncle Chong, did you hide in advance?" "Madam is honest," Uncle Chong said calmly. "As for the general's seal, this old servant is just a servant. Without the general's order, how could I dare to move it? However, madam, this old servant doesn't understand what happened in the past 2 days. These 2 days, the general's subordinates came to visit and said that the general was detained by Mingzhou. Then they forged letters and spread false information. Madam, what do you think?" Wang Shi said coldly. When Xuanjiao entered Mingzhou, the prefecture magistrate of Mingzhou was badly battered. Qi Guanyin didn't help him. It's normal that Lu Shoyan hated him. Because of Hu Shouxin, the northern faction and Tensei province broke off completely. The 2 sides were at loggerheads. Qi Guanyin was a fierce general of Tensei province, so Hu Shouxin had to be the first to draw him to his side. Qi Guanyin was stubborn and wouldn't allow it. The 2 sides couldn't come to an agreement and fought. He was outnumbered, so it's not strange that he was detained. "It's reasonable. Thank you for your explanation." Uncle Chong sighed and asked, "Madam, what is your purpose in coming here this time for the great general seal?" Wang Shi said blankly, "Qi Guanyin and I were once husband and wife. How could I not save him when he was detained by a traitor? Naturally, I used the general seal in your name to call for the other generals to surround Mingzhou and force Hu Shouxin and Lu Shoyan to hand him over. That's all." The old steward sighed. "So you want Mingzhou to fall into chaos?" He looked at the person in front of him, and a hint of pain flashed through his eyes. "Madam, the relationship between husband and wife was cultivated in a previous life. It's faded in this life. This old servant has served the Qi family for decades and watched you cross the brazier with my own eyes and be carried into the Qi family by the general. You've been in the same boat through thick and thin for more than 10 years. Are these years of friendship nothing? Wang Shi was silent for a moment and said calmly, "All of this was fated a long time ago. I had no other choice. It had to be like this. There was no other way." Uncle Chong said slowly, "But your husband will be sad for the rest of his life." Wang Shi smiled sadly. "There's no way to get the best of both worlds. If you gain something, you lose something. In this life, he was weak when he needed to be tough and stubborn when he needed to give in. It's not surprising that he ended up like this. What can I do?" The old steward sighed, Sin. "Madam, are you stubborn and unwilling to turn back?" Wang Shi laughed and said, "Stubborn and obstinate? I was originally from Tensei province. Back then, I was ordered to bring Qi Guanyin under my command in Tensei province. Now, Qi Guanyin is wavering and has gradually become disloyal. He's not willing to work wholeheartedly. What's so strange about me being ordered to get rid of him? Empress has great power and can overturn the court. What can I do? She can make Qi Guanyin lose his position with just a move of her hand. Can he stop her? My brother is now in the hands of others. His life is in the hands of others. Who can help me?" Her voice became louder and louder. There was even a hint of madness in it. "I'm just a pawn. A pitiful pawn who can't do anything. You said that I don't care about our relationship as husband and wife. Do you know that Qi Guanyin stabbed me with his halberd that night? How heroic and how domineering. Our relationship as husband and wife for more than 10 years was nothing more than that. Only then did I know that he had always hated me. He had always hated me and wanted me to die." The old steward was shocked. How could this be? How could it not be?" Wang Shi chuckled. "I saw it clearly. We've been husband and wife for more than 10 years. I know very well. Since he's so cruel, I'll hurt him even more. I'll make him regret it for the rest of his life. I'll make him remember me for the rest of his life. Yes, I'll start with you. I'll start with you." After she finished speaking, she roared and waved her 2 swords to kill Uncle Chong. Uncle Chong's martial arts were far superior to Wang Shi's. However, when he saw this woman rushing over like a shrew, he didn't know how to deal with her. Just as he hesitated, a sudden change occurred. His feet shook and the tiles on the floor exploded. A steel scorpion tail broke through the thick tiles and exploded behind Wang Shi. The sharp-tailed blade shone with a cruel light as it pierced toward Wang Shi's heart from the back. It seemed that it wanted to pierce the 2 of them together in one go. Uncle Chong's pupils shrank. Without hesitation, he reached out and pressed on Wang Shi's shoulder, pushing her to the side. The scorpion tail was coming at his chest. It was so fast that it was too late to dodge it. He shouted, and the muscles on his hands bulged. His calloused hands are like iron palms. They closed in the middle and clamped down on the huge scorpion tail. The collision of flesh and steel caused the old butler's bones to creak. At the same time, the scorpion tail also made the sound of metal clashing. The 2 enormous forces fought against each other. Drops of blood dripped to the ground. It turned out that the thorns on the scorpion tail were slowly piercing through his copper skin, iron bones, and protective aura. The old butler exhaled and increased the strength of his arms. Just as he was about to counterattack, he suddenly realized that the tail blade of the scorpion tail had suddenly bloomed like a lotus flower, revealing a ball of light shining with red light. The divine sense of a martial artist indicated that danger was approaching. The old butler roared and dodged to the left. However, the light was faster. A thin but blazing ray of light shot out from the tail blade and brushed past his cheek. The smell of burning flesh spread out. At the same time, Wang Shi's figure quietly appeared behind Uncle Chong. Her 2 short swords pierced horizontally. With a soft sound, the tips of the 2 swords pierced through the old man's chest. The timing was flawless. Uncle Chong roared in pain. He punched the tail blade upward and used his left elbow to block, pushing Wang Shi back. The right side of his face was already unrecognizable, revealing charred bones. Blood flowed from his chest, and his vitality was greatly damaged. The flesh on his face evaporated, and the pain seeped into his bones. However, his counterattack was still majestic and unstoppable. But all of this was meaningless. His enemy was not some metal scorpion. but the most lethal killing weapon of the kingdom of Livefire. The blazing angel's figure flashed out from the entrance of the tunnel. She seemed much slimmer because a part of her armor had been reconstructed into that terrifying scorpion tail. She pulled out her saber and charged at Uncle Chong. Clearly, she wanted to get back at him for what happened several days ago. The scorpion tail and she attacked separately and together, nailing the old man to the ground. "You're nothing special either." The blazing angel sneered and pushed open the door. Then, she soared into the sky and crashed through the roof, creating the scene of a steel giant descending from the sky to kill. The loud noise finally woke up the general's mansion. Everyone began to rush over in exasperation. The two swords fell to the ground and made a crisp sound. Wangshi looked at the old man on the ground. Her face was filled with shock and sadness. Big drops of tears flowed out. She cried, "Uncle Chong! Uncle Chong!" She pounced on the old man on the ground and grabbed his hand. She cried, panicked and sorrowful. She called his name and shouted, "Someone come quickly! Someone come quickly!" The blazing angel looked at her and was silent for a moment. She was speechless. "You woman!" Wangshi immediately stopped talking. Her face was still filled with tears. She looked up at the blazing angel and said indifferently, "It's about time for you to leave. Remember the way to contact me. Protect me secretly and take good care of my younger brother." "I know." Hearing the sound of footsteps approaching, the blazing angel roared, "Old man, you have some skills. Today, I'll spare your lives." Then it broke through the roof again and went far away in the roar of everyone and the sound of spears and crossbows piercing through the air. In the room, Wangshi, who was crying, looked at the dying Uncle Chong. She wiped the tears on her face and smiled like 100 flowers blooming. She smiled sweetly. "Uncle Chong, what do you think of my ability to deceive people?" Uncle Chong looked at her. He seemed to want to say something, but the blood in his mouth kept gushing out. In the end, he couldn't say anything. Only his pair of eyes that had experienced the vicissitudes of life seemed to say 1,000 words. Wangshi closed her eyes. Her smile turned into sadness. She cried loudly. She indeed had the right to be proud, because her acting was so real. She could deceive everyone in the world. No matter who it was, they could hear her unforgettable sadness from her crying. Chapter 484. When the people of the general's estate heard the commotion and hurried over, they only saw the shattered study, the messy scene, the old steward who had already stopped breathing, and the weeping madam who was stroking the corpse. Although they were also grief-stricken and shocked by the old steward's passing, the fact that the madam who had been missing for several days was safe and sound truly roused everyone's spirits, as if they had found their backbone. They incessantly cursed the thief who had killed the old steward, and they all began to ask about what had happened to the madam and whether or not she had been injured. The scene was a complete mess. Wangshi used her sleeve to viciously wipe away her tears, her eyes red from crying. She raised her hand, and the surrounding people immediately shut their mouths, and the noisy scene quickly quieted down. The woman stood up, her voice somewhat hoarse. "Everyone, the general's estate has been struck with chaos again and again, and has reached a critical moment of life and death. We are all members of the general's estate, and this is my home, as well as your home. At this critical moment, I ask that everyone, for the sake of my husband's benevolence, work together to protect the Qi estate, to protect the great general, and to not let the scoundrels take advantage of the situation." She had been in charge of all the internal and external affairs of the general's estate for the past few years, and she had a deep prestige in the hearts of all the people in the estate. She was completely qualified to give orders, and no one disobeyed her. Even if there were people who did not understand why the madam who had been missing for many days had suddenly returned, or how she had come to the study, at this critical moment, they did not have the chance to speak. Now that the great general was not present, and Uncle Chong was dead, there was no one in the general's estate who had the right to question Wangshi. Seeing that no one had any objections, Wangshi continued. This matter involves too many things, and the consequences are difficult to predict. With just me and the people of the general's estate, it is truly difficult to accomplish. We must borrow the remaining prestige of the great general and obtain the assistance of the generals and officials of Mingzhou in order to avert this calamity. First, we must invite the generals of the inner city army camp, explain the situation to them, and obtain their assistance. After a brief explanation, she began to issue orders. He ordered the general's mansion to implement a curfew. All the maids and servants were to return to their rooms to sleep and were not allowed to go out. All the guards, servants, and consecrators were to be fully armed. They lit huge bonfires all over the general's mansion, took out heavy crossbows, hard bows, and even guns and cannons, and patrolled back and forth to guard against the enemy's tracks. He ordered the personal guards of the general's manor to get on their horses and head to the inner city's army camp, the outer city's Hubo stockade, the Hongqing Army's Yamen, and other important military locations. He sent an urgent message, inviting the generals of Hongqing to the general's manor, saying that the madam had a major military matter to report and must invite all the generals over. He ordered the steward to prepare the coffin and called for the coroner to collect Count Chang's body. There was no need to bury him immediately. The coffin was placed in an ice cellar to prevent it from rotting. They had to wait for the great general to come and see Count Chong one last time. Wang Shi's eyes were red, as if she was suppressing her grief. However, when she gave out orders, her thoughts were clear, and she took care of everything. She was still the astute and capable heroine in everyone's hearts. The general's manor had experienced one incident after another. The madam and the great general had gone missing one after the other. It was all thanks to the highly respected Count Chong that the people's hearts had been stabilized. Now that Count Chong had been killed by a traitor, to the others, it was no different from a pillar of support suddenly collapsing. Just as they were panicking and did not know what to do, the madam stood out resolutely. To these people who were used to being led, she was undoubtedly an even stronger pillar of support. Therefore, they did not think because they never had to think. They only needed to passively carry out the madam's orders that sounded very reasonable. Therefore, while they sighed in admiration of the madam's methods, boldness, and calmness, they carried out the tasks that were sent down with all their might. Today, the general's manor was as united as it was in the past. Swords and spears were taken out of the storehouse. Flames soared into the sky. The gates were wide open, and messengers came out. Today, Huqing was still sleepless. Many people were startled awake from their sleep. Many people who had not yet slept and were tossing and turning in bed were energized. The sound of iron hooves could be heard on the streets where the curfew was enforced. The high-ranking generals who stayed in Huqing led their personal guards and rode their horses through the main streets, gathering at the great general's manor at the highest point of Huqing. The main gate of the great general's manor was wide open, for lanterns were hung, and there were braziers below. The flames shone brightly, making it as bright as day. The general stationed in Huqing continued to arrive. Chen Desheng, Qi Guanyan's trusted subordinate, was the main commander of the Changliang cavalry, the #1 elite cavalry in Ming province. He had also received a message. On the way to the great general's manor, he met his comrade Wu Weizhou. They were both direct subordinates of the great general. Usually, they were stationed in Huqing and were the great general's lackeys. The two of them dismounted in front of the gate and handed the reins to the personal guards beside them. Looking at the blazing flames and the strict guards in front of the gate, they looked at each other and saw the seriousness in each other's eyes. Currently, there were many rumors in the army that the great general was under house arrest in Ming province. Tonight, the madam's sudden summons made them feel that something big was about to happen. Chen Desheng and Wu Weizhou were both direct subordinates of Qi Guanyan. In the past, they had fought side by side and were comrades who had rolled through mountains of corpses and seas of blood. They could understand each other's meaning with just one look. They gripped the hilts of their swords at the same time and left half of their personal guards outside. Then, under the guidance of a steward of the great general's manor, they proudly crossed the high gate of the great general's manor and entered the manor. Qin Dishang was Qi Guanyan's favorite general. He was often called to the great general's manor as a guest, so he was familiar with the layout of the manor. As he observed his surroundings, he calculated where he should break out of the encirclement and where he should meet up with his reinforcements if the worst happened. Just as he was calculating, he heard the voice of the steward in front of him. "Generals, we're here." Qin Dishang was startled awake. He raised his head and was surprised to find that he was already in front of the great general's study. This courtyard was where the great general worked, and it was also where he met with his subordinates and guests. Now, there were many people standing in front of the study. They were all military officials in armor, and they were all respected generals in Huqing and even the entire Ming province. Everyone was familiar with each other. Tonight was not a banquet, so there was no need to formally greet each other. Everyone simply cupped their hands and greeted each other. Qin Dishang looked around and saw someone waving at him. He smiled slightly and walked with Wu Weizhong toward those people. The Front Army Major Wang Rulong, the Army Colonel Lu Nan, and the others, they were all direct subordinates of the great general and were naturally close to each other. They gathered together and discussed in low voices. Everyone was confused. They only knew that something had happened at the great general's manor, but they didn't know why the great general had called them over. They talked for a while, but couldn't come to a conclusion. During this time, more people arrived one after another. Qin Dishang roughly looked around and saw that almost all of the respected officials in Huqing had arrived. At this moment, the door of the study was gently pushed open. The wife of General Qi, who was privately mocked as the Tiger of Huqing, Wang Shi, walked out. Her face was haggard and her eyes were red. It seemed that she had just cried. After she walked out, she gracefully bowed. "Greetings, uncles." In front of the great general's wife, no one dared to be arrogant. Everyone hurriedly returned the greeting and cupped their hands. "Greetings, madam." Wang Shi bit her lip and was silent for a moment. Suddenly, she knelt on the ground. "Uncles, please save my husband for the sake of being an official in the same court." Everyone was instantly in an uproar. In the past 2 days, most of them had received letters from the so-called great general. The smart people muttered in their hearts and felt that something was wrong. The stupid people also felt that something was wrong after hearing the smart people's explanation. In addition, there was news that the smart people in the other military manors had discovered that something was wrong and sent their personal guards to Mingzhou to visit the great general. In the end, they were chased out before they could even meet him. Everyone felt more and more that something was wrong. There were even rumors that the great general might have been put under house arrest. However, it had only been a short time, and there was no further news. The worry and irritation in everyone's hearts had not yet fermented into anger. Therefore, for a while, although they muttered in their hearts, no one did anything big. After all, it was one thing to look down on civil officials, but it was another thing to directly lead troops to attack the great general. Who would have thought that Madame would directly shout this out today? It really caught everyone off guard. They looked at each other and were very dissatisfied. Which bastard had leaked the news and let Madame hear about it? Now, this old woman didn't understand the affairs of the country and believed whatever she heard. Today, she called us over to lead troops to save her husband. Leading troops to attack the capital of a province was not a joke. It was almost the same as rebelling. If the great general was really put under house arrest, then it would be fine. However, if he wasn't, then we were done for. While they were still in a daze, they saw Madame kneeling on the ground. Men and women should not touch each other. Furthermore, she was the great general's wife. It was really awkward for anyone to help her up. The atmosphere fell into silence for a moment. Qin Dishang suddenly felt pain in his buttocks. He felt someone kick him in the buttocks, and he couldn't help but fall forward. Wang Rulong's voice condensed into a thread and drilled into his ear. "You are the great general's trusted aide and are familiar with Madame. Quickly comfort her and tell her not to worry." F***CK. Why is it me? Qin Dishang's fall attracted everyone's attention. He looked at the generals around him. Everyone nodded at him in unison. Their eyes were full of expectation and affirmation. He turned back to look at Madame. Madame was still kneeling on the ground. Her head was pressed against the stone floor as she bowed. He couldn't see her face clearly and didn't know what she was thinking. F***CK, a bunch of bastards. Qin Desheng cursed in his heart. He had no choice but to bite the bullet and say, "Madam, please get up. There's no need to be so formal. We are deeply indebted to the great general. If the general is in trouble, we will definitely go through water and tread on fire without hesitation." Madame Wang raised her head in surprise. Really? Swish, 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 swish. In an instant, the gazes of the generals on Qin Desheng's back became 3 times sharper. General Chen believed that if these gazes could be translated into words, it would be F***CK your mother. Reality proved that even a fierce general like General Chen could not resist the sharp gazes of these 20 to 30 officers. That murderous aura was too F***king frightening. His body trembled, and he stammered. However, the so-called great general being under house arrest and so on is only a groundless rumor. We cannot act rashly. We must properly investigate, otherwise, General's words are wrong. This is not a rumor. Husband is under house arrest in the marquee of Jing'an's Fu by the governor of Mingzhou, Lu Shoyan, and the old general of Tianyuan, Hu Shouxin, and others. It is only because my husband is unyielding and unwilling to cooperate with the northern faction. Madame Wang mournfully said, "The various changes in the general's Fu, from this concubine being kidnapped by traitors to Uncle Chong losing his life to save me, were all part of their schemes. Just now, they even stole the great general's seal." The crowd once again became noisy. Qin Desheng's eyes widened in shock. Madame's words are true. Madame Wang sobbed. This concubine has personally experienced it. So how could it be false? Generals, my husband is under house arrest. He is a dignified general of a province, yet he has been privately set up in a torture chamber. I don't know what kind of torture he is currently undergoing. When this concubine thought of this, my insides almost burned. I wish that I could grow a pair of wings and fly to my husband's side, sharing life and death with him. It's just that this concubine is a woman, so even if my body and bones were crushed, it would be of no help. I only ask that all the uncles save him on account of our relationship as comrades. Everyone looked at each other. Qin Desheng thought to himself, if what Madame said is true, then even if we have to risk our lives, we must save the great general. But directly attacking with troops is too reckless. Even if we can save the great general, we probably won't be able to get past the imperial court. What the F***CK should we do? Moreover, Hu Shouxin and Lu Shoyan are not lunatics. How would they dare to easily detain the great general? I don't know where Madame Wang got the news from. He turned to look at Wang Rulong and the others. Everyone looked hesitant and doubtful. It seemed that they were not in favor of forcefully attacking Mingzhou. However, before they could discuss it, Madame Wang said, "I already have a plan on how to save my husband. I only ask for the uncles to dispatch troops and horses to take responsibility. I don't want you to attack the city and kill innocent people. Otherwise, even if you can save my husband, he won't spare me." Qin Desheng was startled and immediately breathed a sigh of relief. He thought to himself, at least Madame Wang didn't lose her mind because of her concern. Since she knows that attacking the city won't work, it couldn't be better. As for what brilliant plan she has, let's hear it. Almost everyone else had the same thought. They shouted in confusion, "Please tell us, Madame Wang." Madame Wang forced a smile. She seemed to know that this was not the time to be polite. She said directly, "This time, we only need to ensure that my husband is safe and sound, and it will be a great victory. Other than that, we don't need to cause any trouble. Therefore, our goal is very clear, and that is to see my husband safe and sound. That's all." Everyone agreed in unison. The so-called order from the general came from the marquis of Jing'an's residence in Mingzhou. The current situation in Mingzhou is that the governor, Lu Shoyan, is colluding with the northern faction, Tianyuan Wushuan. The northern faction wants to rope my husband because they want to use Mingzhou's power to strengthen their influence and fight against Tensei province. We don't dare to make a big deal out of it, and they don't dare to either. Putting my husband under house arrest is just a risky move. As long as we don't give in, they will definitely panic. Therefore, we only need to make a gesture to force them to come out and negotiate. Madame Wang looked around and declared loudly, "Therefore, I would like to invite all the generals of the army in Mingzhou to lead your troops to Mingzhou City and pretend to attack the city. Then, I would like to trouble all the generals to invite all the civil and military officials and noble families in Mingzhou here. Let's summon Liu Shouyan and Hu Shouxin in front of Mingzhou City and ask them to explain everything clearly while the people from all walks of life in Mingzhou are watching and arbitrating." You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.